We're ready.
Okay. Welcome to the April 17th meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have a roll call, please?
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Manukian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Quintero.
Here. The flag salute will be led by Councilmember Friedman.
I invite you to join me in renewing our pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for this evening's invocation as delivered by Reverend Rich Garner from the First United Methodist Church of Glendale.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, let us enter into a time of prayer. Out of the cool of winter, a new season springs forth, bursting with greater sun to supersede the diminishing dark, color to overwhelm the drab of waiting, green to replace the gray, the promise of fruit and seed to supplant the barrenness of a dormant earth. Warmth has come to the land, and with it new songs, new voices, new hope. O creating God, plant that hope deeply within each of us, and cause it to blossom into compassion and justice, mercy and reconciliation, gifts to be visited upon familiar neighbors and unrecognized wanderers, upon those with whom we agree, as well as any who challenge our strongly held perceptions. As decisions are made, especially in this body, may these resolutions embody the assurance of new life, that this possibility might dwell in all people. We pray all of this with full confidence that we are challenged and changed by such prayer. Amen.
Amen.
Next, please.
The report of the clerk is the following: that the agenda for the April 17, 2012 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, April 12, 2012 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Next, under presentation and appointments at 3A is the agenda preview for the budget study session of April 30th, 2012 and the meetings of May 1st, 2012.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. I'll defer to our Assistant City Manager to go over the agenda preview.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you all know, we will not be having a meeting on April 24th. We do have the annual commemorative event that evening at the Alex Theater to commence at 6 p.m. We do have, however, a meeting on April 30th, which is a Monday at 1 p.m., and this is a special meeting, Director of Administrative Services Finance, budget study session for fiscal year 2012-13, year-end financial projections, organizational profile, and budget targets. On Tuesday, May 1st, we have a number of items listed for that day. To begin with, first and foremost is a budget study session during the day, which will commence at 9 a.m. and it will end at 3 p.m. In the afternoon, we have a number of items for the Housing Authority, one of which is the Dorton Gardens Affordable Housing Project, and one is a certified credit for a change order for Section 8. We do have a joint meeting that afternoon as well, and this is recommendation to approve the annual CDBG Home Action Plan. That evening, we have a number of items. One is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power, purchase of miscellaneous advanced metering infrastructure meter data management system. This is AMI, parts and equipment. This is a 3-year contract with Itron. We're going to be soliciting for bids for HVAC and refrigeration systems, maintenance services at Grayson and the Utility Operations Center. And Glendale Water and Power, this is a purchase order to repair transformer number 4 at the Western Substation. Under Director of Public Works, we have 3 items: Adams and Chevy Chase Rehab Project, East Glen Oaks Boulevard Rehab Project, and fiscal year 2011-12 Street Rehabilitation Project. That evening, we also have an item coming before you from Human Resources. This is regarding a GMA classification. And we also have the Chief of Police, United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance. This is a 2012 assistance grant. I will, however, make a correction. On May 1st, we will not be having an item from the Director of Human Resources. That's coming on May 8th, actually. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, please.
Next item is City Council and staff comments.
Okay.
Mr. Menuchyan.
As you mentioned budgets, I wanted to make a suggestion in terms of the format of the numbers that will be presented to the council. I would like to see the numbers without any interfund allocate or the allocations that are done between departments. We can put that on a separate item, but I do want to see the true cost without any personnel allocations, without any interfund allocations or interdepartmental allocations that are allocated from one department to the other department. So I want to see the true numbers as it relates to every department, without any transfers, allocations, individuals from personnel, half a person here, half a person there. I want to know what is actually costing us per department. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And if there are any revenue items in terms of the general fund that are allocated specifically to any departments, if there are any, in general there isn't, I would like to know those revenue items as well. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Second, 3 weeks ago, when we were discussing the water rates, I made a proposal in terms of borrowing from our reserves and paying it back, since the water fund has been operating, the operations of the water fund has been positive, has been in the black all these years. And I made a proposal that we borrow the funds and pay it back with interest, whatever we would pay for a bond issuance, as opposed to, instead of paying others, we would pay ourselves. At that point, staff came up and said that the government code does not allow us to borrow longer than 5 years. And I asked which government code. They said the state government code. Well, I asked my attorney about the government code, and the government code section is 53601. And the code says no investment shall be made in any security that at the time of the investment has a term remaining to maturity in excess of 5 years. That's what they were discussing. But apparently they forgot, or they neglected to mention the following sentence, which says, unless the legislative body has granted express authority to do so. So we voted for the water rate increases, and I hope that council members did not vote based on the representations made by city staff at that point that we could not borrow from our own funds longer than 5 years, where we would borrow, for bonds we would borrow 30 years, it was said. So I want to make it clear that Government Section 53601 does allow the council to borrow money from the reserves longer than 5 years and 30 years if necessary. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Mr. Najarian.
Thank you. I'd like to remind the community that starting next week is the City of Glendale's Week of Remembrance, and we have two events that we hold annually. The first one is the Armenian Genocide commemorative event, which will be held on Tuesday, April 24th at the Alex Theater. The event starts at 7, but doors will be opening at 6:30. The tickets are free. However, you must present yourself at the Alex Theater box office, which is open Friday through Sunday from noon to 5 p.m., or at the Americana at Brand ticket outlet, which is at the concierge's desk. That's open from 11 to 7, 7 days a week, or also at the Glendale Community College location, also available at the Alex Theater website. We have two interesting speakers. We have from the Canadian Parliament, the Honorable Jim Kargianis, who helped pass the genocide resolution in the Canadian Parliament. And we have a writer and film director of the critically acclaimed film Bolis, Mr. Eric Nazarian. We will also have musical entertainment, some dancing, and songs by the Glendale High School Chorus. So that is free, and it's going to be a very proper way to commemorate the genocide. Also, next week, on the 26th, which is Thursday, at the Glendale Public Library, we will have Man's Inhumanity to Man event. And as you know, we had a film competition. We had many films submitted about man's inhumanity to man and other related subjects. We have 3 winners who we will announce and award prizes to. And we have a guest speaker, Mr. Peter Fischel, who is a Holocaust survivor who will give us his thoughts on man's inhumanity to man. Thank you to all of our platinum and gold sponsors who make these events a possibility. The AGBU, Glendale Arts, Glendale News Press, Asparez, the ANC, the ARC, ACA, Alco Printing, AABC TV, Horizon TV, and AMGA TV. So please try and make these events, they're very interesting and very moving. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Najarian. Ms. Friedman.
I just wanted to mention one event I went to last week. Some of you may have seen this written about in the newspaper, but I wanted to just let the community know who hasn't already heard that last week saw the opening of the new DNA Regional Crime Lab, which is a project that's been underway for many years here in Glendale. That's a lab that's co-owned by Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena, the Tri-Cities. It's going to be a great tool in the arsenal of law enforcement to solve all kinds of crimes faster and also to exonerate the people that are innocent of crimes. It's a really wonderful facility to have in our community, and I want to thank Congressman Adam Schiff for his leadership and his support. He was really the driving force behind making this crime lab happen through federal funding and a lot of pushing from his end in Washington. So thank you, Adam Schiff, and everybody who made the crime lab possible, all the law enforcement officers, both here and at the state and federal level, who cooperated with us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I also want to thank the congressman. He absolutely secured the money and worked through a lot of the red tape, and our own Captain Ray Eady was the point man for Glendale PD. But as Ms. Friedman mentions, what it means is that not only do we have our own DNA lab that would focus on crimes and exonerations here in the city of Glendale, but then also on a regional level, we'll be able to solve crimes that don't have any borders. Last week I mentioned the Compass Award that the Southern California Association of Governments awarded to the city of Glendale. And I see a lot of the staff members here. If you don't mind, if you would come to the podium, those of you that participated in securing this award for us. And if you can just give us your name for the record, as they say. You start first, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Quintero, members of council, members of staff. I'm Mark Sturdivant, Senior Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department, and one of the authors of the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, which you approved unanimously just about a year ago. And it's a document, as I believe you'll recall, that is designed to help make Glendale a safer and healthier place to walk and ride a bike. And it was a great pleasure for us to receive this award on behalf of the city. And I'll let my colleagues add whatever they like. Thanks.
Yes, Colin Bogart with the LA County Bike Coalition and sometimes advisor to the city of Glendale.
Always advisor to the city.
Kevin Carter, Public Works Engineering. We get to build the stuff in the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, and we're having fun so far with the Riverdale Maple Corridor and a couple more projects to come.
Mike Nilsson, Mobility Planner. I'm the one that actually applied for this Compass Blueprint Award with the help of Colin with the photos for the application, and also helped along with Mark, Colin, and Kevin in writing the document.
Well, and as I mentioned last week, it was quite a recognition. All of the different counties that are involved, Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, Orange County, LA, Ventura, so the 6-county region, individual cities and districts within that region, they all competed for this award, and we were awarded the very top prize. So I think it shows the kind of work that they've done and the kind of progress that we've made, and I know we're going to continue to go down that path.
And I think the most important thing to be learned from this process was that this was a really collaborative effort. Community Services and Parks, Public Works Engineering, Public Works Traffic and Transportation, Community Development's Planning Section, and the Police Department. And in addition to the four of us, we had a great deal of collaboration from John O'Bagdanian, Fred Zoravan, Tom Mitchell, Carl Povolitis, Gary Montequello, and John Gilkerson. So it really was, in the best sense of the word, a collaboration. And I think the takeaway from this is knowing what we can do when we, as various departments in the city, pull together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Are there any staff comments?
No, sir.
Okay, I hear none. Next, please.
Next items are the consent items, including minutes following our routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before motion is proposed.
Right, and we need to pull item 5B and 5D. I have a speaker on those items.
I'll move they're made to the consent calendar.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Council members: Friedman,
Yes?
Manukian, Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Could you read 5B into the
5B is Director of Public Works regarding Safe Routes to School Improvements Project Phase 1. Motion B1 is a motion awarding a construction contract to All American Asphalt in the amount of $711,000, rejecting all other bids and approving a reserve for contingency of $71,000.
I have one speaker, Chinook Ramirez.
Thank you very much. This is a matter of principle, and I speak out of experience in reference to my father, who always hired these individuals, and that's why I need to speak about this. I need clarification. When you say under subheading 5B, Director of Public Works regarding safe routes to school improvement project, do you mean safe emotionally, physically, or just public relations propaganda and a figment of your imagination only? Because when I hear safe, I infer it in all dimensions of my or your existence. And that would mean that it would be in adamant opposition, I would be in adamant opposition to awarding a construction contract to All American Asphalt in the amount of $711,000 if they hire criminal illegal aliens and or criminal gangbangers who obviously perform in a substandard and shoddy construction and further have no work ethics. If this construction company hires ethical, credible, conscientious, hardworking, and decent, honorable, dignified, legal, law-abiding American citizens, i.e. military veterans and their families, well, all the power. They have the city and my blessings, because we all want a safe environment, free from criminal elements and free from zone of dangers. Lastly, we need a great rule of law hero and leaders like the great and honorable Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, bravo, bravo, and our great and honorable United States military and military aviators, hoorah, rah. And again, thank you for the public safety and our chopper pilots who are our guardian angels and provide excellent public safety, and that is the sheriffs, LAPD, and our Glendale chopper pilots. Boy, do they kick ass up there. Thank you very much.
Ms. Ramirez, you're going to have to stick to the agenda items. You started off fine. At the end, you kind of got off the agenda item. Which
It was sort of like an ancillary branch to this important topic, if you don't mind. Thank you so very much.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
5B,
Move 5B1.
Second?
roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes?
Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Please read 5D into the...
5D is Director of Public Works regarding Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation call for projects grant funds for Arroyo Verdugo Commute Manager System Project. D1 is motion authorizing execution of an MOU with LACMTA to receive $417,397 in local transportation funds for the project. D2 is motion authorizing execution of all necessary documents with the cities of Burbank and Pasadena for Glendale to administer the MOU for the project. 3 is a motion authorizing execution of a professional services agreement with Asire, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $206,500 to provide software development and technical support for the project. 4 is a resolution approving $50,000 from Air Quality Improvement Fund for the City of Glendale local match. 5 is a resolution appropriating $467,397 from Public Works special grants for the reimbursable portion of the grants project.
Okay, I have one speaker, Chinook Ramirez.
Thank you very much. Experience is the best teacher. Director of Public Works, regarding the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation, I would include the Glendale B Line all shoddy services. I want to thank many of the tourists, Americans, and military vets along with their families who told me that they too were disastrously disappointed in the American transportation system and it wants to go to a bullet train. Get out of here. You've got to be serious. The poor performance by 99.9% of the bus drivers who incidentally happen to be criminal illegal aliens and gangbangers. They don't speak English. They don't answer route questions. They don't know what is the first or last bus. They'll say, look at the bus schedule. Don't ask me. And per the supervisors, they're supposed to know the time schedules which they are driving on that bus. They are nasty and condescending. They don't quell safely any bus disturbances. More often than not, these despicable Latino bus drivers will side with the attacker and further victimize the victim on the bus by downplaying the assault. Most 99.9% of the Latino bus drivers are racist and do not take pride in their job performances. They think they are doing us a favor. No standard of courtesy and or kindness.
Time. Is there a nexus between the...
I'm sorry, was that my time up?
I'm putting you time because I'm asking the city attorney whether there's a nexus with what you're saying and what this agenda item is.
Okay.
In my opinion, Mr. Mayor, it's a little bit far off topic from the subject at hand.
Okay,
So it's
so
up to you
look,
whether
Mr.
you love
Ramirez,
it.
let me explain to you. At Oral Communications, you have 5 minutes, and you can say anything that you want on any topic. However, when it comes to the agenda items, you have to stick to the agenda item. In this particular case, 5D, well, you read the item, you know what it's about, so please confine.
I understand that, but I don't just, unlike you or the city, I don't want to gloss over superficially over the problems. I'd like to go deeper down to the core or the root, which is so vitally important to bring in tourism, Mayor.
We have 5 minutes at Oral Communication to do that.
I do have something else that I'd like to discuss on 5 minutes, if you allow me this 1 minute, and I'll
Please
wrap
get
it.
back to the topic here.
Okay. And again, the bus drivers also, there's the passengers carry MRSA, staph infections, scabies, urine and feces on the buses, tuberculosis, vomit on the floorboards, and windows and seats are all graffitied and or vandalized. Heavy gangbanging population on the buses, and also on Colorado and Central, a big hub for criminal activities. And I think you need to touch on that. There's a heavy gangbanging population on the buses where many of the people, including myself, don't know where to turn to, but coming here. Not everybody comes here because it wastes their time and they say it's pointless, but I believe in taking action.
Let me be clear with you, the next time that you deviate from the agenda item, I'm going to cut you off and you won't be allowed.
Now, why would that surprise me, Mayor Quintero? You know, that's typical Latino. I understand. Mayor Kurt Pringle never cut me off, and he took everything with great concerns. And thank you, City Attorney.
Next, please.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right,
You
next.
want tourism?
Where's the Sergeant at Arms? Would you please
Not being a gentleman.
send her to the back of the room? All right, next, please.
Well, still waiting for a motion and a second on these items.
Mr. Mayor, I move 5D, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Thank you. Thank you. Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
Next is oral communications. However, this is not the 5-minute portion. This is a 3-minute portion reserved for community announcements. event announcements, and we will revisit the full 5-minute portion at the conclusion of all of the city's business.
All right, I'll start with Carol Bruscia, followed by Carl Raggio.
Thank you, Mayor Quintero and council members. My name's Carol Bruchet with Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association. I don't know if this can be seen. I'm here to once again remind everyone that tomorrow is Northwest Glendale Homeowners annual meeting featuring our special guest, Scott Ochoa, city manager, and Josh Luna from the Glendale Police Department will also be there. He will give an update on the recent burglaries and hints on how to prevent break-ins. The meeting begins at 7:30 at the New Life Christian Church, 1020 West Kenneth, which is 1 block east of Grandview, and it is open to everyone, members, non-members. There'll be refreshments, and we hope that all who are interested in hearing Mr. Ochoa will attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Raggio, followed by Lynn Raggio.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council and staff. I'm here with a different moniker today, and that is that there is now a oversight committee that is looking into the successor agency, which is a new agency, and I think you heard from the city manager this afternoon what we're all about. What I'm here for is to announce the fact that we're having our first official meeting on May the 3rd at 2 o'clock in the council chambers. And going through the training session that I did last week with respect to the county, the one thing that they emphasized over and over and over again happened to be the Brown Act. And that is that we have open meetings and we subject ourselves to the same thing that you do every evening. So just wanted to make that announcement.
Why are you laughing when you say that?
You know why.
Well, things have changed a bit, Rafi, but not that much. The end result is that the membership will be composed of 7 people drawn from the community. I happen to be the supervisor's appointment, and that we will be in our jurisdiction looking as to what the actions of the successor committee happen to be. Wanted to make the announcement and let you know that we'll be meeting here on May the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations for the appointment.
Lynn Raggio, followed by Leon Mayer.
I'm taking the place of Lynn Raggio tonight, Lisa Raggio. But Mr. Mayor, congratulations to you. City Council, staff, and viewers. The YWCA of Glendale with the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women is going to be having for the first time an event called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes this Thursday, the 19th, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And it's an international men's march to stop rape, sexual assault, and gender violence. So it's the first time in our city. It's an opportunity for men to take the lead and lead the way to have this conversation and look at ways of remediation. I am, on behalf of all of us who are working on this event, proud to say that Mr. Frank Quintero will be joining us, Mr. Scott Ochoa, Mr. Phil Lanzafam, and Artie Kasakian, as well as the one and only Carl Raggio in the audience. So I invite you to participate with us, and though historically this event has been done with men wearing shoes as a symbolic gesture, it is not a requirement. Oh, except if you would like him to, Rafi, to make sure that Frank does.
I would like him to actually be there with a camera if he does.
Well, there you go. Then I say let's do it. But your participation in your roles in this city and city government is equally, if not greater, impact in having you be at the event. So if you're unable to attend the event, though, at 5:30, we welcome you to come at 6:30 for the post-walk, the reception, where we will be honoring Leadership Glendale as well for what they have done in the first part of renovating our Welcome Center at our building. So thank you very much. And for more information, you can always visit our website at glendaleywca.org. Thank you.
Well, and let me say that Ms. Raggio has a lot of history with this issue. She worked for me for a number of years, and she knows the issues that many of the women and occasionally men have to deal with in terms of domestic violence and employment issues, etc.
Thank you very much.
Leon Mayer.
Evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the council and staff. My name is Leon Mayer, and I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the Library, and particularly tonight, I want to give you a heads up on a presentation by the Associates of Brand Library. The movie is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Come early, and it's Grandma's Tattoos, The Forgotten Women of the Armenian Genocide, a film by Suzanne Cardalian, who is the granddaughter of a survivor who had a lot to say about the subject of tattoos and cruelty during the genocide. Now, our next event by the Friends of the Library is Sunday, April 29th. Our poet from Glendale College, Bart Edelman, will talk about his newest book of poetry called The Geographer's Wife. Now, I know there's not that much burning interest in poetry, but he has a touch for poetry and for down-to-earth matters, and The Geographer's Wife is a compilation of some very interesting poems that maybe some of your children are interested in that. We've already asked the people from the Board of Education and to look into it. And I have a special event coming up May 17th. The event is Die Once, Live Twice. This is a historical novel by Lawrence Dorr. He's a medical doctor. He's an orthopedic surgeon. And I'm going to read what Chuck White put down because he put it down better than I could ever compile it. From the heart and mind of world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Lawrence Dorr, MD, comes an unforgettable historical novel that combines physician's skill, intellect, and knowledge of medicine with wonderful storytelling, creating a book that celebrates the origins and miracles of modern medicine. Dr. Dorr is an internationally respected orthopedic surgeon, one of only 2 surgeons to be president of all 3 prestigious knee and hip replacement societies, and he was honored in 2005 by the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons as Humanitarian of the Year for founding Operation Walk, which provides pro bono surgeries in the developing world. And he's taken doctors all over the world. And co-sponsoring this event is the Glendale Healthy Kids, who's taken medical and dental care all over the city of Glendale. I'll tell you more about this. May 17th is the event date, and you'll hear from us further. Thank you very much.
Next, please.
Next item on the agenda under action items, 8A is Director of Human Resources regarding amendment to CDGMA Memorandum of Understanding MOU. 8A1 is resolution amending MOU Amendment 1.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. We have before you some additional language with respect to some of our managers who may be called upon at some point to do work in the field that requires special training and thus special pay. Mr. Doe?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this item is a resolution amending the Memorandum of Understanding between the city and GMA to provide a specialty hazardous pay for 5 supervisory personnel who are represented by GMA in the practice or a technique known as 12 kV rubber gloving in the electrical section. This is an effort to ensure that we have full coverage in case of any types of emergencies or situation where there might be staff shortages. This technique is a very hazardous type of duty. It involves specified training, and essentially when individuals who have this skill or ability get promoted to the mid-managerial rank, they stop receiving the training and get the and stop receiving the specialty compensation pay. This item has been brought up with the GMA, and the request and the recommendation by staff is that this be extended to those 5 electrical line mechanic supervisor 2 personnel within the Glendale Management Association. Once again, this is an item that's been available to the rank and file employees within the Water and Power Electrical Line series for quite some time. And again, we feel that extending this to those 5 additional staff would provide us with some good assurance in case of an emergency situation. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, on the surface, this change to the MOU makes sense. However, I think we're all aware of the certain atmosphere that we're currently in with the labor group, IBEW. I don't believe that that this action is going to, our decision tonight, to prospectively offer compensation in the event that there's an impasse, in the event that our managers are going to have to go up and do the work. I think it's going to send I think we're going to lose any hopes of conciliation that may exist currently between the city and the IBEW, and that's what concerns me. I understand that a manager all of a sudden being pulled up the line wearing those 12K gloves, touching extremely dangerous wires, should be entitled to additional pay. But in a sense, I see this as perhaps double dog daring IBEW to reject the contract and to really put our position firmly in cement and give up any possible chance of a negotiated resolution. I'm not going to vote for this for that reason. I still hold out hope that the two sides, and you know perhaps better than anyone in this room, the difficulties and the frustrations in dealing with the contract issues. I don't want to prejudice your final efforts by putting a mark on you and on the city, indicating that we are unwilling, and that, in fact, not only are we unwilling to deal with you, but we're gearing up, and you guys go ahead and go on strike or whatever, and we're going to put our managers up the polls, and everything is going to be fine. So as I said, in the microcosm of the additional work that they would have to do for the additional pay, I think that's fair and equitable. But I think we need to look at this in the larger picture and make sure that we still hold out every opportunity to resolve the issues that perhaps we're quite some distance apart on right now. But that's my rationale in not voting for this at this time. I don't know if anyone else
Mr. Mnuchin.
sees it that way.
Yeah, I think it's terrible timing for this at this point. It just puts, in my opinion, it just puts the council in a very bad situation as it relates to, as Mr. Najarian was saying, our negotiations with the current group that we're negotiating. So I don't know why this is coming to council at this point. I understand it's 5 employees. It's not a major group, and I just think that the timing of this is really bad at this time, and I cannot support it at this point. So,
Mr. Weaver.
Well, I will be supporting it. It's $18,000 to $25,000 or $29,000 approximately. It provides important backup support, electrical system for emergencies and staff shortages. And I know as well as anybody sitting up here the status of the negotiations with IBEW. And with that in mind, I will vote for this.
Comments? I have two cards. Mike Mohill, followed by Mike Sagehorn.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero and council members and the viewing audience. When I first saw this item, I said to myself, wow, more money for the union. Now, I understand these are managers. But you know, in the private industry, often managers are asked to do lineman work, and they don't get any additional money. But in government, it's another step. This thing is all geared so that the public basically has no rights. The union has all the rights, and these are managers. It's bad enough they have an association, but here they can go ahead and say, we want more money. Well, you know what? In the private industry, when times are tough, people do 3 and 4 jobs, and they don't get any extra money. I grant you, this is a dangerous job. Do you know what? Walking across the street is a dangerous job. I was a salesman for 27 years, and I drove the freeways of L.A. I was rear-ended about 3-4 times. My employer didn't give me any extra hazardous duty pay. Why is it in government you get extra hazardous duty pay? Mr. Nigerian, we don't always agree on things, but tonight we do. Thank you.
Mike Sagehorn.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and staff. I'm here to speak in opposition of this proposed amendment of the GMA MOU. In this agreement, the city has assigned IBEW, a bargaining unit, to work to its mid-managers. This is a clear violation of our recognition agreement and unfair labor practices. Instead of dealing fairly in the contract negotiations, the city has resorted to well-known strike-breaking tactics. We respectfully request that the City Council honor its agreement to recognize the IBEW Local 18 as the representatives of the employees at the GWP perform blue-collar work. Thank you.
Which agreement is he referring to?
He's referring to the agreement, sir, that has not been ratified.
Well, I'd like to hear from Mr. Ochoa, if you have any responses to the concerns that my colleagues raised.
I think first and foremost, ma'am, what we are advocating is indeed the ongoing discussion with IBEW. We would not intend this to be overly provocative, but rather a protection of the public's interest in the event that there is a job action. But as Mr. Doyle points out, in the event that we have another windstorm, in the event that we have any reason for a work shortage, we have people that have the experience on staff that simply haven't exercised that experience and those skills over a period of time. So basically what we're doing, especially in such a small number, is creating an auxiliary group of people to be able to handle that work or to contribute towards that work if it becomes necessary. Now, certainly as you've heard from one of our GWP employees who has been asked to come and address you, that would be viewed as provocative by the IBEW. As a management right, however, we have the ability to train any of our employees to do any number of things. And doing this proactively on this scale, I would argue, doesn't prejudice the city, certainly not the city council, and I'm speaking for myself, not the city management, in terms of not wanting to get an agreement with IBEW. If anything, based on my experience, getting an agreement that is equitable, that is affordable, first and foremost, to the agency, in this case the city of Glendale, is paramount. Fighting, strikes, job actions, all of those things are hugely expensive, both economically as well as in terms of the community capital. We are, I believe, closer than not. I think we are down to terms. But at this point, Hopefully I don't have just 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I'll make it short. At this point, what we do know from in the context of labor relations is that our last best and final has indeed been rejected. IBEW has entreated us to continue talking. We have responded back that we are indeed willing to continue talking. At this point, I think there is a need to have a meaningful response to our request. So I don't know that this prejudices against us getting that deal that is, I believe, within reach.
Well, the only thing, I appreciate the difficulties that we've had in coming to terms with this. We've made a best and last. We may very well be entering impasse, but there's different ways of entering impasse. There's entering impasse with good faith on both sides and no ill will, where the IBEW would continue performing their duties and seek a resolution through the mediation process or through the administrative process, which is, I hope, where we go. But what I don't want this to be the thing that everyone points to and says, look, we were dealing in good faith until you had to do this, and we weren't talking about strike, and we weren't talking about work stoppages or slowdowns, but you went and stuck it in our nose, and you're training your managers to put us out. And we never said we were going to strike, but you dared us to. And that's the only other thing. I mean, it's a strategy. It's a matter of faith where you hope that both sides continue to discuss and resolve the issues in good faith without any dramatic work stoppage or strike. And I would hate for this rather insignificant cost item and rather this prospective item that hasn't yet even come to pass be the trigger point which causes the system and the process to break down even further. If we have to come to this and Mr. Doyle were to come up and say, next week or tomorrow we're going to have our managers up there and they're going to need that extra pay, that's a completely different story. But this is completely prospective, and it sort of presumes that there's going to be some work stoppage or work slowdown. And I understand it's not an easy situation. There's no clearly right or wrong answer. It's a matter of technique and manner, and personally I feel that we don't need to do this at this point. That's all I need.
Ms. Friedman?
If the worst case scenario happened and we did have a work stoppage, which none of us want to see happen, how quickly will we need to enact something like this? In other words, if we put this off and hopefully we come to terms and we have a contract and then we can revisit it if it's really something that we need for other sorts of emergencies, like you said, natural disasters, that kind of thing, which I think, we should revisit it if, when that happens. But let's say that there was a work stoppage. How quickly would you need this ratified to make a difference?
Well, when you look at what it is that we're requesting, there are really two parts to it. One, that's an assignment pay for the training that you would receive to be able to do this work, and then an additional assignment when the work is actually done. Mm-hmm. So to that end, you would want to, if we felt that there was value in having employees trained to do this work, well, then we should start training them yesterday, because you never know when you're going to need that training. Natural disaster, wind, flood, what have you. The other part, that second part, the second 3% is, as you see in the report, only when those employees are tasked with doing this work. So when do you need it? Well, you have to do the training, and to know how long it takes to get certified on the rubber gloving, I'd have to defer to staff.
Right, that was going to be my question for Mr. Steiger, who's approaching the podium.
Let me try to add some clarity. The first-line supervisors that we are discussing are trained in rubber gloving. However, what we are asking is to be able to compensate them for this very, very dangerous position when, in fact, we may need them, which would only be in an extraordinary operational emergency. So that would not be the norm. It would not be displacing IBEW at any given time. So they are trained, but we are asking for the ability to compensate them as anyone would be to do this type of hazardous work, which is required in our system, and it would be required at an instant if we don't have the resources to do the work as we do today. I also want to give you a little bit of background. Having spent 25 years in an investor-owned utility situation, which is a private industry, first-line supervisors, for the most part in investor-owned utilities, are trained constantly in these types of situations and are compensated appropriately for that in advance, with the idea that at any given time they may be called into duty. So it's not unusual in our industry at all to have this type of situation. So I just did want to add that bit of clarity for you.
So in fact, the supervisors are trained and ready to go, so to speak.
That's correct. The supervisors are currently trained.
Okay, any other?
Would you like a motion? We'll see where it goes.
Just a question in terms of operations. In terms of, in case of a need, aren't supervisors and managers supposed to pick up the slack? I mean, isn't that what they get paid more for as managers?
Well, as managers, the classification is different, and it's a function of what the market bears and what the need is.
No, I know, but that's not what I'm asking. And I'm asking in the situation of need for the city. Aren't managers supposed to kind of pick up the slack as the need arises?
Yes, but I think the difference here is that this is something that is a speciality, especially in the industry. As opposed to saying one of our supervisors is out, you need to supervise his or her crew. And so we're giving you more people, more responsibility, deal with it, you're a manager, so manage. This is something that is very specific, that speaks to a skill set and a competency.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion? See where it goes? I'll move 8A, 8A1.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, if you don't mind letting me make a comment. It seems to me that if this is used for work-related reasons, work stoppage-related reasons, that can always be done. If there's a stoppage, they can always bring this to council and it can be passed. I think there's a better argument, which is the argument about this just being there in any case of an emergency. I was going to suggest bringing this back after we have a ratified contract, which hopefully we will have soon, because the last thing I want to see us have is any kind of a war with GWP employees, who I have the utmost respect for. And I'll say I've told Steve Zern this, and I've said this publicly, I get more compliments about GWP employees than probably all of our employees are great, but I get a lot of emails complimenting GWP employees from the general public. I have a lot of, I place these employees in a high regard, and I hate to see, us not come to terms. But in the back of my mind, I also think about the windstorm we just had and whether not having this in place is compromising us in case of any kind of an emergency, which we did have just a few months ago. So to me, I didn't read this as being related to the IBEW contract when I read this item at all. I just thought it was something that we needed. So I'll support it, but I'm not voting for it as any kind of, to imply any kind of provocation or threat to GWP by any means, and I can't imagine that having 5 employees have this is going to make any kind of a huge difference anyway, if there really is a work stoppage. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Well, for me, I do think it's a bit premature at this point, so I'll vote against it and see where we go from here. Roll call.
Councilmembers Friedman?
We already
Yes.
had oral communication.
Councilmember Manukian?
No.
Najarian?
No.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Quintero?
No. Next.
Next item at 8B is Director of Public Works regarding banner request from the Glendale Sunrise Rotary for use of city poles and light standards. At B1 is motion providing direction to staff.
Mr. Ochoa.
Mr. Stern will give you a staff report regarding the request from Glendale Sunrise Rotary.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, occasionally we will get requests from groups that are not affiliated or sponsored by the city to hang banners supporting programs and projects that they have. These are the vertical banners that go on light poles and other poles that we have in the city, which has become an annual event. The Glendale Sunrise Rotary has made a request each summer to put up their Not Even for a Minute program on about 160 poles throughout the city, primarily along Brand Boulevard. With that, I'm going to ask Steve Rockvogel to come up and talk to you a little bit about the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. First of all, congratulations, Mayor Quintero. I think that the city made a very wise choice in having you as our mayor. And But better than I can say about this Not Even for a Minute program, and I know you've all seen this PSA that the city runs on Channel 6 for us from time to time. I'll ask the people at GTV6 to show the PSA.
Now sit right here. Don't touch anything. Mommy's going to be right back.
It only takes seconds for the unthinkable to happen.
How old is that young girl now? Is she married?
Think. Remember. And whatever you do, never, ever leave children unattended in or around a vehicle, not even for a minute. For more information, go to notevenforaminute.org. Brought to you as a public service by the Los Angeles County Medical Association Alliance and the Glendale Sunrise Rotary Club.
Well, in answer to your question, Mr. Councilmember Najarian, she's about 12 years old now. And actually, we just honored her and thanked her at a recent Rotary Club member meeting. Actually, she's older than that. I don't know exactly how old she is, but this is our 5th year doing the banners. And Councilmember Najarian has sponsored banners before. You or anybody else are all welcome to sponsor banners if you'd like. If anyone has any information, wants any more information, they can call me on my cell phone at 818-482-1445. And unless we have any other questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rockvogel. Have a motion.
I just want to say my glib comment aside, this is a very serious issue, and we hear stories almost on a monthly basis during the summer months of children being left in vehicles, children and pets being left in vehicles that get up to 200 some or 100, in the high hundreds at least.
Yes, and just as a quick note, since you mentioned that, last year, about the time that we were putting these up, there was an issue over at Costco in Burbank. And somebody saw the children in the car and called the police and the fire department, and the parents were arrested. So it is a very serious issue, and it's something that constant vigilance and education is needed for.
April 1st, 2011, a 14-month-old baby inside a 115-degree car in Burbank. Good idea. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
The motion said providing direction to staff. You got it right.
Next, please.
Next is Director of Community Services and Parks regarding 2012 Glendale Cruise Night. C1 is a motion approving a scaled-down version of Cruise Night for 2012 totaling $42,840, including appropriation of $13,222 for fiscal year 2011-2012 and $29,618 for fiscal year 2012-2013. At C2 is a resolution appropriating $13,222 for fiscal year 11-12.
If anyone wants to speak on this item, please turn in a card. Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. This is an item for our annual Cruise Night event in light of the coming year's budget. We are scaling it down and recommending that it be scaled down significantly so that it is affordable. Further, we're asking that we break up the appropriation into 2 years, this existing current fiscal year and the coming fiscal year. Our staff analyst, Teresa Alexania, will give you the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. Good evening, Mayor Quintero, council members, staff, and the public. My name is Teresa Alexania, an executive analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. Before you today is a council report regarding the 2012 Cruise Night event. This is a free, family-friendly event that is held annually. It's a classic car show featuring 350 to 450 classic cars and hot rods, community displays, fun games and activities for kids, and of course the local restaurants and retail presence. It has been distinguished as producing the largest draw of individuals to downtown Glendale, about 50,000 attendants annually, and is the largest one-day sales revenue generating event for the downtown merchants. It began in 1994 and is held annually on the third Saturday in July from 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The event has been funded by redevelopment agency funds since 2010. Unfortunately, with the elimination of redevelopment this year, the funds are no longer available. Staff has scaled down the event enough to reduce the cost, but has tried to not impact the level of attendance and participation by car owners. The scaled-down cost of Cruise Night would be approximately $42,840, which is a 65% reduction from the original cost of the event, and it includes elimination of big name band entertainment and hiring a DJ or a local entertainment talent, using the city's own sound and stage equipment, and reducing the number of blocks from 5 blocks to 3 blocks, which cuts the staff costs. Staff evaluated their department budgets to try to absorb the cost for this year, but unfortunately were unable to. The staff is seeking council approval to hold the 2012 Cruise Night event on July 21st at a scaled-down cost of $42,840. If council approves the event, staff further requests appropriation in 11-12 for $13,222, and the difference of $29,618 will be appropriated as part of the fiscal year 12-13 budget cycle. Staff hopes to offset the cost of the event with car registration revenue and cash sponsorship. So we hope that the net cost of the event would only be $25,500. It is important for council to provide direction to council today, because staff needs to start the planning, promoting, and marketing of the event to be successful. Therefore, it is an established event in the community, and therefore it is important for it to be held on the third Saturday in July. So staff does not recommend changing the date. This concludes my report. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments, Mr. Najarian and then Ms. Friedman?
It's a great event. I think it's one of the greatest events that we have in Glendale. And I understand the budget constraints that we have this year. But I'm looking at the sponsorship opportunities and the projected revenues of $5,000. Is there, can we work on that? Is there a better, would better marketing bring in different companies and agencies to that seems rather, a company wishing a lot of exposure could certainly rent a booth or a table space there at the prime location for, I'm thinking, at least $1,000 for 50,000 people who walk by. And I'm sure that you look at this, but I'm wondering if there's not a way to ramp it up a little bit to help offset the costs.
Mayor Quintero, council members, city staff, Ross Ferris, the Community Services and Parks Department. The answer, Councilman Najarian, is yes. These figures are what we have really produced in the past, based upon the fact that redevelopment funded most of the event. With the emphasis on the fact that, we're going to downsize the event this year. we will go out, and we've already contacted a number of people to sponsor different things that really aren't on the sheet. One of them is in the budget we have monies to provide an actual small container or bag for the car owners, but we don't have anything to put in it. That's one of the traditions of a car show. We try to help the car owners remember a good experience, so they'll bring their cars back, which they're part of they're the stars of the event in some, in a lot of people's minds. So we're going to try to get sponsor money to put that type of thing together. We're going to try to get sponsor money to offset the actual expenses of the event. But the figures that you see are what we've actually produced in the past. We will do everything possible to raise more money. I don't know exactly who we will contact at this particular time, because we've been so busy trying to figure out how we can have the event with reduced costs. We haven't got that far. But yes, you have my assurance that we will do that.
Like Meguiar's and Car Wax.
Meguiar's in the past has provided at least one piece of merchandise for every goodie bag, and that's 450 pieces of something, a quick detail kit, a microfiber towel or something. They have been terrific participants. What we need to do is get other vendors to step up and do that also.
But if I can just, before you speak, Ms. Friedman, you're next, but I think what Mr. Najarian was talking about, and I feel the same way. I mean, when I think about Meguiar Auto Products, the brand Boulevard of Cars, different tire companies, Firestone, Continental, automotive audio companies. I mean, when you go to automotive events, they have their trailers there. They are selling products, none of which compete with the local merchants on brand, I might add. You don't go on Brand Boulevard to buy Meguiar Wax or anything else, Castrol, all their products. I mean, it seems to me we should, with 50,000 automotive enthusiasts on the streets of Brand in one night, we should reach out to these corporate entities and see if they, in fact, want to bring their semi or whatever display they have to get in and to get their name in front of them.
I certainly agree, and in the past cruise nights, we have had General Motors here. We have had a lot of different automotive companies and aftermarket product companies. It's just this year we need more of them.
Sweet.
A few things. First, along the same lines, does it make sense to look for a single large corporate sponsor that can really brand this? Like, would you approach GM about making it GM Cruise Night? I don't know if council would be willing to go that direction, but have we thought about doing something like that?
Yes, we have. Up until this point, we haven't found a local company or even a national company that's been willing to do that.
Have we really gone out to national companies about putting their name on the event itself?
We have approached Meguiar's, we have approached State Farm Insurance, and we have approached General Motors.
Okay, there's a lot more
yes,
auto-related.
Yes, those are the three we've approached.
Our marketing and programming will continue on, but at this point, we're getting to the point where we need to sign contracts with the folks that will actually help us put the event on, and hence the appropriation coming to you at this point. Our experience has been this lower number. Will we continue to try and get new people? Absolutely. And if we do get a large single corporate sponsor, we would have to, we would, in general, just come back to the council to make sure that that meets the council's vision, that you are okay with going with the, Winston Tire, the corporate sponsor for the entire thing.
I have a...
Well, no, I had another concern. Not for you, thank you. My only concern about this cost cutting, a big concern, is about cutting the area from 5 to 3 blocks. Because if we're expecting roughly the same number of people, even if we don't have the big band attraction, that may cut it down a little bit. But I think a lot of people would come to Cruise Night anyway, quite honestly. It's already so packed that it's hard to walk through there. And I just am worried about the quality of the event being squeezed, and if we can really squeeze all those people in, and the safety of it. So I'm not really comfortable with reducing the size of this particular event, given the number of people that are there and how crowded I've seen it every other year.
Certainly with more money, we can ensure that we have a greater footprint, some more police, more.
Well, how much more money would it actually cost to add back that space? Because what happens if we get the same number of people?
Sure.
And then we're going to have a real problem because they don't fit into that space as it is.
Right, and we can come back to you with an idea about what the previous cost was for last year, and you can aim at something in between.
That includes the entertainment, that includes everything else.
Sure.
So I think we need to pull out the numbers just to have that additional street.
Correct, and the number that we had been talking about, if you pulled out all of the high-line musical entertainment, was about a $60,000 figure. We had priced this out at 60, at 40, and at 20, recognizing that 20 was so small that the problem that you've identified just is completely exacerbated. 60, on the other hand, is something that was sufficiently large that as staff, we felt that in the period of budget cutting, that if we came to you asking for that amount of money broken up into 2 years, that you'd be asking, why are you asking for this kind of money?
Well, so let me ask this. Do you really think that attendance is going to drop that much, or that the same number of people that were spread into those into those 5 blocks could fit into 3 blocks?
Remember now, the fifth block was where the stage was, at the intersection of Milford and Brand. That block behind the stage was really the backstage area and parking for the people that were backstage. This year we're going to move the stage down to Wilson and Brand and have it across Wilson, so it will not block Brand. This is the way we used to do it up until about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, so that's 1 block. And what
Right.
about so there's still another 2 blocks then that you're talking
No, it was 5 blocks. We took care of 1 block, so now and we proposed 3 blocks, so now we're thinking about one block.
So you don't think that's a problem, given the amount of crowds you get?
I really don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Yes, we have 30 to 40,000 people, but they're not all there at the same time. We have the majority of people that are there. The height of the event is between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. However, people come and go. So I really don't think it'll be a problem. It'll be a squeeze, and we're going to have to provide more barricades and that type of thing to control the area possibly. But I don't think it'll be a squeeze. And I have to tell you, with our the police department and things, they've been very competent in handling that type of a crowd in other events, not quite that big, but I'm not worried about that.
Maybe I can offer a suggestion that would help at this point. Staff's advised that, again, excluding the entertainment, but the same footprint is going to cost us anywhere from 10 to 15.
Well, now they're saying we don't need that 1 block if we don't have the entertainment. So you can take 1 block away. So what about, what's the cost for just that 1 block that actually had cars then?
You're probably less than $10,000.
Yes, I agree.
And so, I'm sorry, sir, just to continue that point and hearing what the council is directing with respect to sponsorship, might we suggest that we move forward with the appropriation with perhaps an ancillary appropriation only to be offset by sponsorships? That way, if we get sponsorship, we can spend more money as we go and basically enlarge the footprint of the project, yet still allowing, in a time-sensitive manner, the contracts for the rents and the stage, light, sound, everything else that we're doing, so that we know that we have those by date certain.
Well, I also agree, losing that 1 block because of the stage and so forth, I don't have a problem with it, but I hate to lose the other blocks because this is a singular event for those merchants, and I know those restaurants are packed, packed for hours. So I really hate to do that.
Yes,
Mr. Duran.
Mayor Quintero, council members, I think we can go ahead and commit to a 4-block event. Ross is right. The one block by itself was just for the professional stage that we paid a lot of money for, and the backstage and the VIP area and the parking. We don't need that because we're going to have a scaled-down event because it's going to be local entertainment, and so that cuts a major portion of our expense. But we can commit to a 4-block cruise night and try to stay as close to the $42,000 budget. It may go over a little bit, and we may have to come back with an additional appropriation. And we do have the commitment from the police department to try to work with their scheduling so that the extra cost would not be overtime costs, but maybe modify schedules for that particular a week to save those costs. But I think we can go ahead and compromise and make a commitment to a 4-block event and try to
I'm glad to hear it.
try to have it close to the 42,000 as possible. And as Mr. Ochoa said, we'll make a broader, more concerted effort to seek corporate sponsors, and if we can offset our costs, then we can be assured for at least a 4-block event.
And then quite frankly, I don't think the entertainment is going to make that much of a difference. I think people show up for the cars, the event, et cetera.
We're hoping
and
that's the case.
I also would hope that our new economic development team, they, in my opinion, should step up to the plate and get involved and contact McGuire and the Brand Boulevard of Cars and the different tire companies and see what's out there. You never know till you call. There might be a corporate decision maker that says, yeah, I'll come on board. I mean, they'll show up. I think financially for them it would make sense. The other comments, I have one card, Mike Mohill.
Evening again, Mayor Quintero, council members, and the viewing audience. My name is Mike Mohill. I found this report on this cruise night. There's about 8 pages in total, and they always keep saying in this report, the largest one-day sales revenue for the downtown merchants. How much money has the city been making all these years that we've had this event? Now, the redevelopment agency's been spending over $100,000 every year on this event. That means the taxpayers. What have we got in return? Where are all these sales receipts that these merchants say they've gotten more money? Does it mean that the taxpayers got more money? Who's getting the money? So even if you go ahead and say, well, we're not only going to spend $42,000 from the city, not the redevelopment agency, again, $42,000. Show me the money, as they would say to Jerry Maguire in the movie. Show me where we've made money on this deal. Some merchants say they've made money. Sure. Show me the receipts. Show me the documentation. All I hear is feel-good reports from the people who promote this. I enjoyed that of the night out, and I've been to it. But let's be realistic. Can we afford $42,000? The library would love to have $42,000. So would the soccer players love to have $42,000. Is it money being well spent, or is it going down a rat hole? $42,000. Let the merchant pay for this. Let the car dealers pay for this. Let's get some sponsors. Why must the taxpayers be on this hook? These are tough economic times. Many of us are on Social Security, and we'd love to have $42,000. Let someone else foot the bill, not the taxpayers. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill.
I have one more card. This will be the final card. Anyone else want to speak? Charles Hooker.
Regarding cruise night, I always bring my car to cruise night, and it's an event that a lot of the cities have, but never as big as the city of Glendale, and as well run as the city of Glendale. And I know that the money that they get from all of the people that own cars is quite a sum. And I don't know what Mr. Mohill is talking about, but I think it's a well-organized and run thing, and I'm hoping that you don't cut it down too much. And when it first started out, it was on Maryland Avenue. It wasn't even on Brand Boulevard. And there wasn't that many cars involved. But it's grown, and grown. And last year, several of the dealers that sell cars in Glendale had their cars on Brand Boulevard. And a lot of the people that had cars to display could not show their car because of the new cars that were parked around there. So, again, I hope that the dealers, Ford, Chevrolet, Pontiac, whatever, paid for their spots and for their advertisement that they got. Thank you.
I'm just curious, Mr. Hooker.
Yes.
What kind of car do you bring to cruise night?
Pardon?
What kind of car do you bring to cruise night?
I have a 1964 pre-production Mustang convertible.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other comments?
On a motion?
Yes, Ms. Weaver.
Make the motion with a statement. Maybe we ought to forego any involvement in the 4th of July, the Christmas parade, cruise night, and having lights on Brand Boulevard. Let's just fold up and go silent all year long instead of trying to promote the city a little at a time. With that, I can move 8C 1 and 2. It's the same amount. If you get more.
For a second.
The other block is in. I don't know if that's in the motion.
If you want to add it, just to add that particular provision.
With the extra block, 4 blocks.
Second.
Okay, is that because you're on Social Security? Is that why you want to cut out?
I want to know if he's being sarcastic or
No,
not.
I get
All
about
the
$100 on Social Security.
All right, roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Menuchyan,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
Next, at 8D, is Director of Community Services and Parks and of Libraries regarding proposed ordinance amending Title II and Title VIII of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995, retitling Library Department to the Library, Arts, and Culture Department, placing administrative responsibilities of the Arts and Culture Commission with the Library, Arts, and Culture Department, and revising the powers and duties of the Arts and Culture Commission. D1 is ordinance for introduction.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Before you is the presentation that would make several changes that reflect the emerging trend in library services, public library services, and the evolution of libraries as cultural and art hubs within the communities that they serve. What we are asking is to transition the placement of the Arts and Culture Commission to the library, to change the name of the library, and also to define or provide some additional definition to the function of the commission. City librarian or library director Cindy Cleary will make the presentation, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. Cindy Cleary, Director of Libraries. I'm here before you today to recommend that we amend several ordinances related to the Arts and Culture Commission, the powers and duties of the Arts and Culture Commission, the administrative oversight of the Arts and Culture Commission, as well as the retitling of the library. As you recall, let's see, do I turn this on?
As soon as I find your presentation, Cindy, which folder was it in?
Okay. As you recall, in August, I think August or September of last year, we came to council, Jess Duran and I Jess Duran from Parks, Community Services and Parks, and I came to council to bring, or to start a conversation about the vision you have for the Arts and Culture Commission. And at that time, the conversation focused on the vision for the Arts and Culture Commission related to programming and its relationship to Glendale Arts and different arts organizations in our community. At this point, after that meeting and several conversations, we are before you to make some recommendations. Yeah, sure. Excuse me.
Okay, we have a technical issue. We'll
Have a Interlude of some soft music. Interlude of some soft. Same, the same. Same. Who's the mayor pro tem this month? He elected a new mayor.
I think we can continue.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We're up.
Okay. So anyway, just to repeat, what we are talking about are the powers and duties of the Arts and Culture Commission and our recommendations to clarify that role, the administrative oversight of the commission, transitioning it from the Community Services and Parks Department to the library, and the retitling of the library department related to this transition. We also want to talk about how the Arts and Culture Commission relates to Glendale Arts and other arts organizations in the community. This is nothing new, but just to reiterate the role of the Arts and Culture Commission as the voice of arts and culture in the city of Glendale. And we see it as four main roles that they play: develop and recommend arts and culture policies to City Council. At this time, the ordinance does not include recommending policies. It just simply says advisory to City Council. Serve as an advisory arm for the distribution of the Urban Art Fund. There are guidelines in place related to the Urban Art Fund and the Urban Art Plan. But Council has not designated the Arts and Culture Commission as the entity that would recommend distribution of the funds and development of a policy related to that. Continue to promote arts and culture activities and continue to recognize and promote the importance of arts and culture to economic development. These are things other than the policy development. To a certain extent, they've done policy development, but this would expand their role. And otherwise, most of these things they are currently doing. So what does policy development mean? It means bringing a vision or having the Arts and Culture Commission help with a vision for the arts within the city organization. So examples of policies that they might work on would be how do we accept donations of art? I know in my department there's never really been a clear definition about how we accept donations, and the Arts and Culture Commission could provide us some direction in that area and possibly provide a role in the acceptance. And they already do have a role, but I'm not sure it's officially designated as a policy. They can work on incorporating art, policies related to incorporating art in city projects. If we have a function that we want to serve, can we find an artistic way to render that function? In this case, in this visual, we're talking about bike racks, and I think we have some relatively artistic bike racks outside. But how do we integrate that into kind of the thinking of all our city departments? Another one is public art at city facilities. The Arts and Culture Commission is now working, I think, on a policy related to the Parks Department. But how do we incorporate public art at all city facilities, not just within the Parks Department? And then temporary displays that aren't necessarily part of ongoing city programming. This is another issue that's come up, and we don't really have a clear policy related to this. So these are examples of some of the policies that the Arts and Culture Commission could take a look at and recommend to City Council. The Urban Art Plan, Urban Art Fund, as you know, we have a 2% or a 1% option in terms of development. And as I said, the Arts and Culture Commission has not been officially designated as the advisory arm for this, although the guidelines and the municipal code do say that you have that option of designating either the commission or another organization to serve that purpose. And I think this would be quite an enhancement to their role right now, that they could really exert some influence on city arts policies and the city organization and the city as a whole. And continue, as I said earlier, promoting arts and culture activities. They already are doing a great job with that. And recognizing and promoting the importance of arts and culture and economic development. Once again, that is something that they are doing, and that is recognized in the current ordinance. So primarily related to the things that I've just mentioned, the ordinance would add their role as advisory to policy and recognize or strengthen their role as promoters of the art officially through ordinance. The discussion at the last council meeting was what is their role in programming, and the conclusion that we're drawing is that the Arts and Culture Commission, it can't be their primary role, primarily because of budget constraints. I mean, to implement a program, an arts program takes money, and we don't have that money to give to the Arts and Culture Commission. So what we're saying here is that there are other organizations, including Glendale Arts, other organizations that we've talked about in the past, and city departments who really are the leaders in programming. And also, the other comment that came up at the last council meeting was what redundancies do we have? One example of that between the commission and, for instance, Glendale Arts would be the website. And in my mind, and what we've discussed, is that Glendale Arts would continue to play or be kind of the center of activity in terms of getting information out about all the different arts events in the city. And these are just photos of other arts events that are under the purview of a variety of organizations. Lisa Glickman is in the audience, the interim CEO for Glendale Arts, so if you do have any questions related to their role in the community, she's here to answer any questions you might have. Then the other part of this report is to recommend that we transition the oversight of the of the Arts and Culture Commission from Community Services and Parks to the Library Department. Why the library? Well, as Mr. Ochoa mentioned, the library has really become representative of the cultural hub of city organizations and the city. I won't read the whole thing, but our mission includes inspiring intellectual curiosity and stimulating the imagination, and that speaks clearly to the arts, without any doubt. About a year ago, we had a strategic planning process meeting with members of the community, about 100 members of the community, and they identified areas of service where they think the library takes a lead in, and one of those areas was arts and culture. So that it's clear that the community sees us as an arts and culture organization. Grand Library and Art Center, I don't need to say much about that except for that it is one of our premier art facilities in the city with art, music, and dance programming. We have a vision for the Central Library in the downtown area, somewhat hindered by the recent issues with redevelopment, but still, Central Library is an anchor to what hopefully will be more arts and entertainment district or venues and activities in the downtown area. We, of course, have cultural programming, literary programming, and we recognize that the arts are an important part of early childhood development, and we incorporate the arts in a lot of our children's programming. So, what does this mean for the library? I mean, whether or not you agree that we should transition to the library, it's my belief that we need a name that better reflects the service that we provide, and so we are recommending changing the ordinance to read that it's the library department, but in addition to that, we are the library arts and culture department. So that is something that we are recommending, regardless of what happens with the other recommendations. So once again, if you have questions, Elisa Glickman is in the audience. I'm here to answer any questions. Jess Duran is also here to answer any of your questions, and I'll turn it over to you.
Are there questions? You said in terms of programming for the Arts Commission, Arts and Culture Commission, the policy, what you have presented is kind of curtailing their effort, their ability to program arts functions. You said it's because of lack of funding. Is that what am I correct in understanding what you said?
Well, what I was saying is that we need to recognize that there are other organizations in the city that have the budgetary ability to really do programming on a more full scale, and that in my mind, it shouldn't be recognized as a primary responsibility of the Arts and Culture Commission. But
you keep mentioning Glendale Arts, and their primary responsibility is supporting the Alex Theater, not what you have in the report where it says develop programming, facilitate interaction among artists, and the programming. I thought those were functions of our Arts Commission. And if there are organizations in the community who want to contribute in other ways, then that's fine. Why are we limiting the Arts and Culture Commission to just being an advisory and allocation, just an advisory role, basically? Why are we limiting them? Because the thing that comes to mind, I'll tell you why I'm asking the question, is because a few of the developers that came here and they presented their developments, and we requested that they, instead of putting a piece of art in front of their projects, we requested that they put the funding into our arts fund. So I would think that there will be some funds available specifically designated for that purpose in the city. So why limit, that's why I'm asking the question, why limit the Arts and Culture Commission to an advisory role when we're requesting developers put money in an arts fund?
I guess the way I look at that is that the commission is made up of 5 members, and 5 members don't have the ability to implement a program. They have the ability to advise as to what programming might another organization implement. But with 5 members, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but with 5 members, that would be a difficult task to take on to fully develop a program. I mean, if I took an example,
Quite limited. If they want to do a programming in a smaller scale, why tell them, well, you're only advisory, you can't do that?
Well, the other interesting point here, and this is up to the council, but the other interesting point right now is that the ordinance does not include, as far as how I read it, does not include programming responsibility. So that truly would be an addition to the ordinance, as the ordinance reads right now, at least my interpretation of it.
I think to that point, certainly it's the council's pleasure. I mean, first and foremost, whatever you want to do as a council is what we can do. What it is that the recommendation revolves around is this notion that the Arts and Culture Commission is in the position really of steering and not rowing. We have funds, resources that this commission can solicit other programming ideas or set the vision for what nonprofits or non-governmental organizations might do. And so working basically through proxy by extension, they're able to implement that vision. They're able to implement those programs. The difference is they aren't doing that programming any more than the Parks and Community Services Commission goes and operates a recreation program for the little kids, or the Planning Commission goes and actually does the planning staff work. It's really a paradigm in terms of making policy or actually doing administrative work and implementation.
I understand that, but why limit them? That's the question. If they want to go out and put an event together that promotes certain artists, twice a year or something, why tell them, no, you can't do it?
And our recommendation would be that the commission could be more effective doing that again through an outside group, but if the council wants them to have that authority, certainly they can. In reality, when the Art Commission wants to do a program, a lot of times it's going to be city staff that does the program. And what you're seeing more and more, I think what you'll see in the coming budget especially, and I've advised previously, that I think the trend that you are going to see are fewer city employees, more investment in non-governmental community groups.
But I understand, but I think being creative, the Arts and Culture Commission can certainly team up with other organizations and be part of events and sponsor events and help other organizations promote events and do programming with other organizations. I don't understand why limit them into an advisory position.
Yes, Mayor Quintero, if I may, Councilman Manukian and council members, just to clarify, the current duties of the Arts and Culture Commission currently do not include programming. We, from time to time, may go on the brink of starting to do programming like the Open Studio Tour that the Commission has sponsored previously. But we don't have the staffing nor the budget to have the staffing to do programming on behalf of the Arts and Culture Commission. So their role and their primary duties and powers are advisory, promoting arts, and helping to provide policy direction to the City Council. And that's primarily what they do, and they currently do an excellent job at that. The Urban Art Program provides a great opportunity for them to expand or embellish on their policy role in giving advice to the City Council. For example, we might have something similar to the CDBG Advisory Committee, where the urban art funding, an RFP might be issued to other art organizations in the community to develop art projects and submit proposals, and the Arts and Culture Commission and the staff could evaluate those proposals, interview those organizations, and facilitate the implementation of art projects that way. And that would be very much within their policy advisory role to you, the City Council. But they have yet to be officially designated as the administrative entity to the Urban Art Program, and so we think that would be one of the next first steps after today of what we need to go back and work on and bring back to you.
And how are we to use the Urban Fund program? Is it restricted funds? Are they restricted to specific arts programming? Is that how that fund is to be used? Because if it's restricted, then you can't use it for funding personnel within the general fund. But if the Arts and Culture Commission puts events together and they can use some of the staff, maybe we can use some of that funding to fund some of the staff. I don't want to say it out, you're making me say it that way. So,
is there an answer to the question about how the funds can be used?
I mean, I may defer to Mr. Hagani, but my understanding of the fund is it's pretty broad based in terms of the kinds of activities that it supports. Artists, event or artistic endeavors, programming, and expenses related to facility enhancements.
Well, we can't have Glendale Arts, do programming and use Urban Arts Fund, right?
No, you can't.
Well, yeah, you can.
You can?
Uh-huh.
Why wouldn't you do it with the Arts and Culture Commission then? Why go to an outside organization?
I think what you're seeing is, for example, in the case of Glendale Arts, and that's only one, but the GATE program. Here is a group of artists. Their sole function, private nonprofit, is to install art in vacant storefronts. And it's nice that when the storefront is vacant, it gives people something to walk past, and it's an interesting point to start. If our art committee or if our Arts and Culture Commission said, we want to have a vacant storefront arts program, let's go do that, our staff would say, we don't have the staffing to do that. However, if that's what the commission wants to do, recommend it to City Council, we will go and solicit interest from all of these nonprofit organizations, and there are a plethora out there. We always talk about Glendale Arts because that's the one that's here that operates Alex, very high profile. But there are a number of different organizations. If that's what they do, and they do it with little or no overhead because either they're a nonprofit, they're volunteer, or any other reason, we can go solicit them and get them to do that. I hear what you're saying, that why would we limit ourselves? It's really the council's prerogative as to how much you want to do, but what we are advocating is basically a new paradigm that says the council and thus the commission has the opportunity to set the framework for how we advance the cause of the arts and cultural activities in the community. What is the best way to do that?
And a comment?
Well, I'll wait till after the public speaks.
I have a number of cards. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the... Okay. No one else wishes to speak. Terry Deaver, followed by Arlette der Hovanessian.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, staff. My name is Terry Deaver. I am an Arts and Culture Commissioner for the City of Glendale. I want to start by saying that I fully support the proposed departmental changes and the move of the Arts Commission to the libraries. And in effect, it recognizes the arts and culture as significant in Glendale's identity and its economy. And I appreciate the delineation of the roles between the Commission, the city departments, and the arts organizations and private sector, broadly spoken. And I think that the direction and the role of the Commission that it may play with regard to policy making and advisement and the Urban Art Fund are really an exciting opportunity, and that's really very beneficial for the city of Glendale. There are a few items in the report that I had some questions on and could use a bit of clarity. For instance, with regard to the role of the Commission, it would be my hope that the Commission will have greater latitude with regard to its policy advisement role than is actually inferred in the summary report. So, for instance, perhaps defining and broadening the term policy to include recommendations for incentives, ordinances, and programs that will both support the arts community and bolster the economic growth that would be advantageous to the city, rather than restricting the role to the narrower definitions of policymaking and promotion. And I do have more specific ideas about that if at any point somebody was interested in that. Secondly, while direct interaction with the arts community in the form of forums and networking events is prohibited in this revision, maintaining some sort of mechanism by which the Commission may partner with city departments or private entities would be important, because we may at some time need to inform our recommendations and our policy making and advisement by specific interaction or input from the community that we can't get necessarily during a regular meeting. Thirdly, I love the vision that the expanded library department, and I look forward really to learning more about what that may entail in the future and how it may, after it absorbs hopefully the Commission and hopefully some of the appropriately city-sponsored and co-sponsored events that will come under the library department in our absence of doing any formal programming. Fourth, I want to encourage the city to adopt a broader vernacular that includes the entire creative community by reaching beyond the terms of arts organizations within our community, so that we're including the creative businesses, we're including the creative industry, service organizations, and artists that are acting as sole proprietors within our community. Again, overall, I'm very excited about the proposed recommendations. I just want to make sure that the city is being flexible and making the best use of its commission and the talents that you have on the commission with regard to advising the city in ways that will broaden the economic reality for our overall community. And I also just wanted to make the comment that I do appreciate, and I think it's helpful for the general community when we talk about arts organizations, that we don't define or pull out any particular art organization, because it may read roughly within the community itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Arlette der Hovanessian, followed by Rosmi Gregorian.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero and councilmen and city staff. Since due for the Brown Act, we have not discussed the contents of the presentation for today. I was going to say exactly the same thing as Terry Deaver, Commissioner Deaver has said, and I want to congratulate our staff for coming with this wonderful idea, and the rest of the issues is exactly as she has explained. She has said it in beautiful words, and I want to say we are in agreement, and we are here to support the decision of the council, and with the changes within the departments, we are there to support the library and art and culture department and do our best in our advisory capacity. Thank you. Good evening.
Your name for the record.
Thank you.
He was asking your name for the record.
He didn't give you a name.
For the
Oh,
record.
Arlette Hovhanessian, Art and Culture Commissioner of the City of Glendale.
Rosmic Gregorian, followed by Lisa Glickman.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero and honorable council members and city staff. My name is Rosmic Gregorian. I have been a commissioner of arts and culture for 8 years. I believe the longest serving commissioner, and proud of it and very happy. And I'm not going to read all of this for you tonight. There's a lot of good stuff in here. But Mr. Quintero, before anything, I congratulate you for being elected the mayor. I think that's a very good election, and we are very excited and proud of it. The changes that are proposed here in this ordinance, I'm personally fully supportive of it. We have been hoping and fighting for a long time to have an arts and culture department in the city so that we will be able to streamline the activities into that. And I think it's a great progress. Having said that, where we were at the Parks and Rec department, the director was absolutely excellent. There is nothing we can say about, negative about Mr. Jess Duran and his department and the staff. And I'm really, really sure that if this transition takes place to the library department or library arts and culture department, I'm sure Ms. Cleary would also be as supportive. So I think this change is really good. This is a major step forward. And I really like the idea that we are going to have an arts and culture department. But there is a little issue in here. Just the name change does not really mean much. I can call myself Brad Pitt, but I'm not Brad Pitt. And I cannot act like him, I don't look like him.
Close.
Yeah, I hope so, Mr. Manoukian, but it's not. So what I basically am trying to say is basically with this change, what I'm taking is as a work in progress so that the new department, the new name, and the new powers that are given to Arts and Culture Commission, hopefully we will be able to really be very effective in the artistic and cultural activities in this town. And there is another issue. We just say we will allocate this, some of this, outsource it to other organizations and maybe even Glendale Arts. That's probably fine, but most of these organizations are also non-profits. They also have budgetary problems. They also have staff problems, and they don't have the luxury of having an urban art fund to be able to fund some of their activities. So, again, that area has to be clarified. It's not clear. And I hope it's a work in progress. Overall, this is an excellent move forward. I'm very excited that we are going to have what is called a library arts and culture department. Just the name of it will elevate the whole thing in the community. And also, I really am hoping that with the support of all the council members and the other city departments, we will be able to implement new policies and make arts and culture a really very vibrant city and a destination for arts. We'll make Glendale a destination for arts in the region.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Glickman.
Mr. Mayor, member of the council, staff, and members of the community, my name is Elisa Glickman. I am the interim CEO of Glendale Arts, and since I heard our name batted around a little bit, I thought I'd clarify a few things. It wasn't my initial intention to speak today, other than to offer sort of moral support to Ms. Cleary and Mr. Duran, as we've had several conversations about this particular initiative. First of all, yes, our primary role as Glendale Arts is to manage the Alex Theater, but we have, over the last several years, grown beyond that. We manage a website that is also a community calendar that gets upward 60,000 plus hits per month. We have hundreds of listings on that website that promote arts and cultural events as well as nonprofit events in the community. In addition, we manage the Glendale Pops Orchestra, which is concluding its first season this coming May, in addition to a host of other programs. But I don't want Glendale Arts to be sort of the crux of the conversation. I think that we were identified as the largest arts organization in the community, but to Ms. Deaver's point, there are hundreds of nonprofit organizations, there are thousands of independent artists in this community who are all looking to this council and this new initiative to really give all arts organizations and all artists sort of a bump up. And we've played a role in those preliminary discussions, but we're not the only game in town. Certainly, Mr. Ochoa pointed to the GATE project. There's the Art for the Ashes project that worked closely with the Parks Department. There's the Glendale Youth Orchestra. There's numerous opportunities for this city to partner with a variety of nonprofit organizations. And so while we've been sort of on the ground floor of those preliminary discussions, and as I said, we're much larger than simply the Alex Theater, although that is our biggest role, there are a lot of other folks that should come to the table and participate in this dialogue. And so I hope that in this transitionary period, while you're making the important decisions to make the move to the library department, that all of those other groups, their voices are heard. And as you start to look at your programming and your funding opportunities and potential RFPs down the line, that we all sort of can play a role in that dialogue. So I'm happy to answer any questions specifically about Glendale Arts and the role that we could potentially play, but I just wanted to clarify our position that we're not here to say, hey, if the city doesn't want it, we'll take it. It's simply that we're here, we're a resource, along with countless other organizations within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's my final speaker.
One question, Mr. Mayor. Staff, we're not creating a new department, are we? We're renaming a department.
That's correct, sir. We would be taking the library department and reflecting all of the things that they do now and have historically done, and that which I believe that the staff and existing stakeholders in the library, not just Library Commission, but everybody who plays a part, the patrons, the friends, everyone else saying, we are a cultural hub, let's reflect that.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank first the commissioners and Elisa Glickman for coming today to talk about the role of the Arts Commission in the city and for your work on the commission for all these years. Thank you. And I want to also thank staff for bringing this forward. It's kind of a big, complicated policy document and set of changes. I'm very happy to see this come forward. This is something that I've been talking to staff about since I've been on City Council, and trying to find a way to make the Arts and Culture Commission more relevant to the day-to-day operations of the city, and particularly to help them as a commission to be more integral into bringing arts into the community. And I think that this policy does that. What's been missing in my mind and what this change does is it makes the commission directly responsible for forming policy that will hopefully help and support arts and culture not only at the city level but throughout the entire community. And I think in the past they haven't had a lot of direction on how to do that. And when it comes to programming, the question is, why can't they do programming? Well, there's some things they can, probably do, but you're talking about 5 people who sign up to work once a month. They are not to be expected to do programming that includes things like getting insurance for a building, putting nails in the wall, hanging art, all of the things that go into programming an event, making the phone calls, doing the list. That's not their job. And it's no wonder that in the past when they've done programming, and they have done programming, I think to the wonderment of a lot of people, those 5 people actually have done some pretty large bits of programming, but you see that it can't be sustainable because you have different commissioners. Not everyone can make that commitment. Not everyone's going to. I don't believe that staff is equipped to do that either, even though in the past they have done that. They have made those phone calls. They have gotten the insurance. They have done all those things. That's not their job either. We don't have anyone on staff who knows how to hang a show. We don't have people on staff that are equipped to do arts programming. What we do have in the community are lots and lots of volunteers and nonprofits who do have that as their mission. And it's my belief I talked about it in my State of the City address, that really our role should not be to try to do all this stuff ourselves or be in competition with nonprofits. We should be here to support those groups, whether it's through policy or monetarily through the Arts Fund. They're there. There are groups that we should be embracing and supporting, not in competition with them by doing programming ourselves. But what I think the role of the Commission really should be is coming up with those policies. And what I would like to see, and to me in some ways, who runs the Commission at the city level, I want all of the executive staff to think of that as irrelevant, because I think that it's going to be the responsibility of everyone who runs every department to look at every program that their department does and say to themselves, should this program or event come in front of the Arts and Culture Commission to see if there's a way to integrate the arts within it. That's how they can best be used. When Public Works has a project, like we saw the bike racks, but there's lots of projects they do. We have bike lanes. We've got all kinds of stuff that Public Works does, and they can think to themselves, is there a role for the Commission to look at this and see, is there a public art component of this that could happen? Is there some other sorts of cultural part of this that we can explore? We talked about cruise night earlier. Terry Deaver mentioned broadening the idea of policy, I would like to see it broadened to include things like events. Should we be bringing cruise night in front of them to say, is there a way that art can be somehow integrated into this event? I would think that there probably is, and it probably doesn't even cost us any money, because there's probably artists out there who do auto-related art who would kill just to have a little spot in that event. That's something that they can think about, look at. They've looked at policy like public buildings and using art in that. These are important things that create real opportunities for artists and for cultural interactions for the public that they now will be empowered to fully explore. But it's going to take the support of every department head to bring that to them. They can't be expected to go out and think of all those things on their own. So I'm going to ask each department head to really take that on as a mission and think about everything their department does, and is there something that they can bring in front of the Commission to see if there's some policy direction of a way to bring culture or arts into whatever that is. To me, asking them to do programming would be like asking the CDBG Commission to go out and build a homeless shelter. It's just not what their role is supposed to be. In the same way. And I think with the Urban Art Fund that we should have some kind of language that they act like CDBG does, and maybe do make, it may not be as specific as to say what organization money should go to, but at the very least they could say, we'd like this amount to be public art, maybe this amount to be educational, this amount to be the Alex, or whatever it is. They can start to think about that funding in that way. I agree with Terry on broadening the definition of policy to include things like even private businesses, arts-related businesses, to see if there's a way that they can somehow be supportive of that. We have the Creative Corridor in the San Fernando Valley. That's something that they might come up with policy towards, or a way to support some of those startup creative industries. We had talked about artist housing at one point. That's the kind of thing that they can be involved in that discussion. So basically, I think this is, it's a big change. I think it's a role that they can do and that they can do well, and that will make a much bigger difference than them trying to put on a show. I think they can support those shows that the community members already are doing, but their role is going to be much broader than that, and I think much more important than that, because it's going to affect and touch every bit of public life, as far as, that's what I would like to see. And I think expanding the role of the libraries is a natural progression, something that we can see. And some of that programming can be done by library staff. They already do programming in terms of visual arts and other kinds of arts, and they can just expand on. The Commission could certainly help them expand on that role as they want to expand it. And Ms. Cleary spoke at one point about expanding that library role outside of the walls of the library, and that's something that I think is very exciting as well, is to bring that outside of the library. So I think it's all positive. It'll certainly evolve. It's sort of a new step, and we'll see that evolution. We'll continue to have that dialogue and talk about refining it. But I'm glad to hear the enthusiasm from the commissioners. I think that as the groups out there, the nonprofits, realize that now the Commission maybe has more funding and more ways of supporting them, that we'll start seeing more engagement from those arts groups with the city and with the Commission, which I think is also very positive. So thank you all for coming, and thanks to staff. And I hope that my colleagues will support this change.
I want to make a few comments. I also support the change. I think It's a natural fit with the arts and culture, with the libraries. I think it's a great move. I don't see the Arts and Culture Commission as competing with the other organizations in the community. I see them more as working with the other organizations in the city. In the report that is presented, it lists the functions of the arts and culture, or the recommendations. And the last one says promote activities related to arts and culture in the organization, in the city organization, and throughout Glendale. And the next item, or the next bullet point, is the other arts organizations. I don't want to mention Glendale Arts, but that and other organizations. And it says develop and implement arts and culture programming, facilitate interaction among artists, provide a forum or other means of public participation in the arts, recognize achievement in the arts throughout the city, support and assist artists and arts organizations. Now, for Arts and Culture Commission, it says promote activities in city organization and throughout Glendale. What does that mean? To me, that means the same thing as what's listed for the other arts organizations. It means, how do you promote activities throughout, arts and culture activities throughout Glendale? You develop and implement arts and culture programming. You facilitate interaction among artists, and so on, support artists and arts organizations. So when I talk about the Arts and Culture Commission planning and promoting events, I don't talk about, and I'm certain that they don't see themselves as going out there and putting nails in the walls and painting and all of that. I see them partnering with organizations, recruiting individuals, just like we do the genocide commemoration event. We recruit, currently we have 2 of us with 1 staff member, I believe. We have recruited individuals from the community to come and work on the committee to put on an event. And the genocide event is a major event that is put together. And I see it as a similar role for the Arts and Culture Commission, because, and your staff report certainly states that, promoting activities throughout Glendale. I don't see that. I don't see it. And my issue is basically not limiting them to just an advisory function. I see them, if they're willing to go out and recruit individuals, go out and recruit committees, go out and work with other organizations, or partner with other organizations that are doing events and helping them in any way they can. I think that's part of the function of the Arts and Culture Commission as well. And I don't see them, as I said earlier, in any way competing with any of the other organizations, because they haven't so far. And I think they've done a good job in terms of partnering up with other organizations and advising the council. So I'm in support of it. I see their role as a larger role than what was stated. And I hope that, however the council votes, that the Arts and Culture Commission takes that to heart, and what is written here in terms of promoting arts throughout the city of Glendale, they will do their best to do that. So that is it.
Me? Did I have my hand up? Oh.
Artist.
That's true, I'm an artist. To put it very briefly, you're seeing the evolution of the library system going into this century. Libraries aren't going to look anything like they have in the days when I was growing up and running all the books on the shelves. The rules were expanded, keep a viable, to respond to the public's needs. So, very briefly, I support it.
Okay, Mr.
I think one of us said, are we creating an arts and culture department? No, we're not. What we're seeing is, as Mr. Weaver said, the growth and the evolution of the library department, which is absorbing a lot of the programming that involve the arts and culture in our community. For the Arts and Culture Commission to remain relevant, They're going to have to be more active. I've used the example before, and I think it's very apt to liken them to the Commission on the Status of Women. Commission on the Status of Women does their own fundraising. They do their own partnering with the YMCA, with the local hospitals. They promote events, Denim Day, this Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, the Jewels of Glendale, and on and on and on. And I don't think their budget is any greater than that of the Arts and Culture Department. I don't like the idea that when we sit around at the staff table, we're all going to have to, we're going to have to ask Steve Zern, Steve, is there anything you can throw to the Arts and Culture Department? Legal? Commission. Arts and Culture, Commission. Legal, what can we create that's going to be relevant for the Arts and Culture Commission? No, that's not what it is. The initiative has to come from the Commission and their staff members. And it should grow from there, not the other way around. We shouldn't be trying to find ways to support the Arts and Culture Commission on our own. Public Works shouldn't have to do that. GWP shouldn't have to do that. It should be the other way around. The impetus and the initiative and the creativity, how's that for an Arts and Culture Department? The creativity should come from within the Commission and spread out, just like the Commission on the Status of Women does. Those are my overall views. I support this this realignment, if you will.
Call it realignment.
Well, we're moving them to another department, so in that sense, they're being aligned with the
We don't like the phrase realignment.
library.
It has a bad connotation.
Inside joke.
Retract it.
Okay.
Find a different word.
Reassociation with the library department. I don't expect, and I went and sat down with Ms. Cleary there, and I said, look, are you going to have a whole lot of money and a whole lot of resources that you're going to be able to just apportion over? Because it looks like they take up 2/3 of the name of the department now. It's arts, culture, and library, so they should have 2/3 of your budget. No. And I hope that we don't think that this is just going to solve it. We're not throwing money at them. We're not throwing the arts fund money. And the arts fund money, I don't, is this the 1% that we're talking about?
It is the 1%.
When I personally sat here and fought for that, it was my vision that be used for art that would be more permanent and not be used for programming that would be gone 1 year after it's done. So, that's not the Arts and Culture Commission budget. I don't want anyone to look at that money and say, oh, now we've got a budget we can play with. No, the budget is still very limited. The city is cutting back in all departments. We're cutting, from A to Z, essentially. So the ball is in the court of the Arts and Culture Commission. You guys have to get it together, be creative, take new steps, do the art walk, do the... someone came to me the other day, why can't we have Shakespeare on our sidewalks? I said, you know what, that's something for the Arts and Culture Department. I sent them that way, Arts and Culture Commission. I sent them your way. I don't know if they ever got to you. Art tours, painting, all these sorts of things that you need to play a role of. We're not going to tee it up for you and let you hit it off the tee. You guys have to do it and use your own creativity and artistic talents. That's why we picked you as commissioners. So, Unity Fest. I don't know what role you play in Unity Fest. There's a ton of work that our city staff does in Unity Fest. I don't see you guys at Unity Fest. Why? I don't know. I mean, the invitation is there. We don't have to send you the invitation. Come on and help us for Unity Fest. Because we're dealing with arts. We're dealing with culture. Cesar Chavez Day celebration. There's arts and culture. I don't know if any one of you were even aware of that or took any role in that. Because we go through a lot of effort to try and find performers and bring the culture to the people of Glendale. So that's where I feel. I really think I'd like you to, if there was a a gas pedal on your commission. I'd like to step on the gas and get some action and see some productivity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Najarian. I also support moving the commission to the library. I think there's going to be a lot of synergy there. I think it's going to work out really well. In terms of the programming, I'd like to see arts and culture at a much higher level in terms of what the commission does. I don't think that going down into literally programming events, I just don't think that's appropriate. In terms of the public art, which is a 1% fee, which hopefully in the coming years with the development is going to amount to some fairly decent money, I'd like to see that really focus on public art. When I voted for it, and I supported it from the beginning, but my focus was to turn that money into public art. And there have been cities in this country, including Chicago that comes to mind, Atlanta, that the money that they invested in public art, into urban parks, made a big, big difference. And that's where I'd like to see Glendale go, because I'm afraid, like Mr. Najarian mentioned, that if it does in fact go to programming, you do X amount of programming, it's a great event, but at the end of 6 months, a year, one night, whatever it is, it's gone. And these are one-time fees from the Urban Art Fund, our public art, but that's into the future. At any rate, I am excited about it. I think there's lots of possibilities for the commission, and I think going into the new department, I think there'll be some new ideas, and we'll move forward, and obviously focus on the economic, like Mr. Najarian mentioned, the art walk in downtown L.A., always very well attended. There's just lots of things to. Do I have a motion from?
No, but I'll introduce the ordinance at 8D1.
All right, the ordinance has been introduced by Mr. Weaver. Thank you very much. I want to also recognize the chair of the Arts and Culture Commission, Mr. Kavanian, who has been an artist, a true artist, a performing artist for many years. From the time he was a young man, he continues to stay here in Glendale even as he grows and does so many things. And the other commissioner is Mr. Lee. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Okay, next please.
Next item is a hearing at 9A as Director of Community Development. This is continued from March 13th regarding appeal of conditional use permit, case number PCUP 2011-016 for property located at 1376 Balmoral Drive. 9A1 is motion to sustain the Planning Commission's decision to approve the CUP application. 9A2 is motion continuing matter to the May 1st, 2012 meeting to draft findings overturning the Planning Commission's decision and denying the CUP application.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. This is an application to build a new 4,380 square foot single-family residence at the stated address on Balmoral Drive. There is an appeal to the Planning Commission's decision on this matter, as well as the Planning Hearing Officer. Mr. Hagani and his staff will give the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this item came before you March the 13th, and at that point the appellant requested to continue the item for 90 days so that they could produce evidence that had not been considered according to the appellant by the Planning Commission staff. The council, instead of continuing the item for 90 days, you continued it to today, which is a total of 35 days. And thus far, we have not received any new information from the appellant that would require staff to change the staff report to you, which we had prepared and submitted on March the 13th. As a result, I'm going to ask Vilya Zamaitaitis, the senior planner who has worked on this case, to present the staff report and the analysis that was prepared at that time to you tonight. And we still we maintain the recommendation that we did last month, as Ms. Zamaitaitis will explain.
Okay, I have a legal question from the city attorney. We had a public meeting, we had an open public hearing, et cetera, last time.
No, but yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we opened it, but no testimony was taken. It was just open for the purpose of continuing it. So my suggestion
Then
is
obviously I need to have the appellant make his case.
correct, and my suggestion is to allow the appellant to go first and allow the applicant to then speak next, and any other speakers after that. And if you could open the public hearing as well.
I will open the public hearing. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, council members. What you have before you is the appeal of a project in regards to, make sure the slides aren't working, of a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit request was filed to demolish the existing one-story structure and to construct a new two-story, approximately 4,300 square foot single-family dwelling and an attached three-car garage on a lot zoned R1R with a width less than 80 feet. The existing lot width is approximately 79 feet as measured according to the code, which requires that the lot width be measured 15 feet parallel to the front property line. So noted in your staff report, zoning code does not prohibit development on a lot width less than 80 feet. It solely requires an approved conditional use permit. The planning hearing officer approved the conditional use permit because he was able to make the four required findings. One, that the project is consistent with the elements of the general plan and the zoning code, that R1R zoning allows for single-family development subject to a conditional use permit approval for the lot being less than 80 feet. And then again, the subject lot has a frontage of approximately 79 feet. The subject lot was developed in 1981 with a single-family residence, has been occupied and used as a home since then, and has not generated any adverse impacts on adjoining uses. The proposed single-family residence will essentially replace an existing dwelling on the same site. The proposal complies with all current code requirements for R1R development, with the exception of the lot width, which is an existing condition of the lot, and that the characteristics of the subject lot are similar to the majority of lots in the neighborhood on the south side of Balmoral in terms of lot shape, size, topography, and frontage. The planning hearing officer decision also addressed the criteria required for hillside development cases, and he also imposed a specific condition of approval that included a requirement that the height of the central entry tower be lowered. The case approval, the CUP approval, was appealed by the neighbor to the north. The Planning Commission at its hearing voted unanimously to uphold the conditional use permit approval 4-0. And this is in having reviewed the plans, the neighborhood comparison details, and the findings set forth in the planning hearing decision letter. The Planning Commission determined that the lowered two-story proposal would not be out of character with the surrounding homes along Balmoral in terms of width, height, massing, and scale. And the commissioners also remarked that the proposed single-family residence is replacing an existing dwelling on the same site and is in compliance with all current code requirements and intentions, with the exception of the lot width, which is an existing condition of the property. You see before you the subject lot set forth in the center of the screen, surrounded by all the properties that are zoned R1R Floor Area District 3. Subject site is an approximately 10,500 square foot lot. It's irregular shaped and located mid-block on the south side of Balmoral. There are no height or story restrictions for the property other than the R1R zone height standards, which would essentially be 2 stories and a maximum of 32 feet in height, 3 additional feet if for pitched roofs. No documents were ever discovered to substantiate a 1-story height restriction claimed by the neighbors. The subject property is outlined in red, and the appellant's property to the north in yellow. The subject property has a jog along the rear property line that was approved by the City Council in July 2006, and this was due to a lot line adjustment. The project site was developed in 1981 with a 1-story, 2,790 square foot residence and an attached two-car garage in the center of the lot. The proposed house, shown in gray, is located in a similar location as the existing home, though a little closer to the street. Other than the lot width, the proposal complies with all zoning standards, including setbacks, height, parking, landscaping. This is the proposed elevation that was submitted for the conditional use permit hearing before the planning hearing officer. As noted, as a condition of approval, the hearing officer required that the front entry tower be lowered to match the proposed roof ridge. Here before you is the revised elevation addressing the hearing officer's condition for the lowered entry tower. The revised plans show the front entry tower as being lowered from 31 feet 3 inches to an overall height of 26 feet 8 inches for the residents. This is almost a 4.5 foot less than the original proposal and more in keeping with the typical two-story homes on flat lots in an R1 zone. This is a cross-section drawing provided by the architect to the Planning Commission, depicting the home in relation to the existing neighboring two-story homes. Here you see a cross-section through Balmoral showing the relationship between the appellant's lot on the left and that of the proposed subject property on the right. The appellant's house sits approximately 25 feet above Balmoral Drive and the subject property. As shown in the diagram, significant majority of the lots on the south side of Balmoral Drive are less than 80 feet in width. So the proposal is in keeping with the existing neighborhood context of single-family residences on lots less than 80 feet in width. All of the homes along Balmoral Drive within 300 feet, and this would be within the 300-foot survey area, are 2 stories in height, except for the property located at 1388 Balmoral Drive that is 1 story, and that would be the lot that is furthest to the right, that is not highlighted in green or yellow on the screen. The proposal has a floor area ratio of 0.417, where their maximum ratio limit would be 0.45. And the residence adjacent to the east has a floor area ratio of 0.514 and is approximately 4,700 square feet, while the home directly to the west has a floor area ratio of 0.394 and is approximately 3,700 square feet. The average floor area for residences within the 300-foot radius is 4,077 square feet. The proposal is 4,300. Here you have an aerial view looking north. The project site is highlighted in red, while the appellant's property is shown in yellow. In his appeal application, the appellant claimed that the project is incompatible with his residence, will inversely impact his property, and more importantly, devalue his home. The written appeal application did not mention views. However, the appellant specifically objected to the project during the planning hearing officer hearing, citing loss of views and construction impacts. And the view protection issue was brought up once more by the appellant during his public testimony at the Planning Commission. Here's an aerial view looking south at the project site. Again, the appellant's home is highlighted in yellow with the project site highlighted in red. Here's a view of the appellant's house as seen from the subject site looking north. And the project site mailbox is actually in the far right-hand corner. This is a photo montage showing the view of the appellant from the appellant's deck. And I'm just going to quickly go through this since this is a photo montage. Here are the individual photos. Looking far east, You'll notice that the story poles are present for the subject property. The view as it progresses to the west.
I see the yellow.
Correct.
Does the termination of that visible yellow mark indicate the actual top of the roof?
Yes, it would. I've highlighted the existing story poles in the photo in yellow to make them more visible. So these are the actual story poles that were put up for the proposal.
So downtown LA would still be visible?
Actually, downtown LA is highlighted in red.
Downtown Glendale?
So yes. This the
UFO that landed?
No UFOs or helicopters, but yes, it's the benefit of PowerPoint. So you'll notice if I go back, story of yellow.
Palo Verde
in the way distant. It was a nicer day. So downtown Los Angeles, and then downtown Glendale to the far right. From a different vantage point, closer to the driveway as opposed to the deck. The story poles, same height and depiction and location as existing. Downtown Los Angeles highlighted in red. Downtown Glendale on the far left. Far right. This photo was actually taken in the appellant's family room. You'll notice downtown Los Angeles directly in the center. This photo was actually taken in the kitchen, the story poles. This is standing in the dining room with the story poles highlighted in yellow. And this is if you were seated in the dining room with the story poles in yellow. I'm going to go back. This essentially concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Just so noted that if City Council upholds the Planning Commission's approval of the CUP, this case will still need to go to the Design Review Board for review.
Ms. Manukian?
Just one question. You said there was a lot line adjustment in 2006?
Correct.
I was on the council back then. I probably voted for it. But why would you need a lot line adjustment? And I was looking at the pictures. It was on the steep side of the property where you can't really build anything. Why would you need a lot line adjustment?
Correct.
Not you. I mean, why would anyone do a lot line adjustment?
There was an issue regarding a pool extension and issues regarding the property lines as to where the permit was actually where the survey was taken for the pool extension, and there was a lot line adjustment that was requested and ultimately approved by City Council in 2006. So this is in regards to a condition that they were trying to rectify.
Questions? Okay, I'll have
questions? Thank you.
I'll have the appellant come to the podium first. We'll need your name for the record. We'll need your name for the record.
Yes, sir. I am David DiGiulio. I'm an attorney at 330 North Brand Boulevard, and I'm representing the appellant.
Okay, so Mr. DiGiulio, about how long do you think you'll need, how many minutes do you think you'll need to present your...
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. So I'm going to give the appellant 10 minutes. Then I'll also give the applicant 10 minutes as a rebuttal, or rather, to present his case. And then the appellant will get to rebut your comments. I also have a card from the doctor, and I'm going to give you, he'll have 10 minutes to present the case. I'll give you 3 minutes to tell us whatever you need to say. Go ahead, Mr. DiGiulio.
Thank you, Mayor Quintero, members of the council. I was calculating as I came here tonight, I think I've been coming before this august body for almost 30 years. I saw Carl Raggio here. I was reminded of him, Ginger, Larry Zarian, Marianne Plumley, and I remember a young new Turk on the council, Mr. Quintero. Now we have a whole new group, and I'm still honored to be here and to be part of this group. We are opposed to this for 3 reasons. One, the staff did a great presentation. They over and over said, look, this meets all the regulations. It's the same as the existing house, the same zoning, the same codes, everything's the same, but it's twice as tall. They forgot to mention that. This thing is twice as tall. And so we don't think you can make the findings you have to make when something is blocking the view and is twice as tall. Second, we think that the process is not going the way it should go. You have, in this project here, the cart before the horse. You're being asked to approve a project that isn't final. It hasn't gone through Design Review Board. Who knows what they're going to do with it? So how can you make findings until you know what the real facility or project is? Similarly, if the homeowners have their own Design Review Board, an architectural committee, that group has not reviewed this project either. So again, you're being asked to tell us about, to approve the moving of the cart, but you don't know anything about the horse yet or where it is. I thought it was similar. I was thinking, what could I compare it to? Suppose this is a CUP for a bar. And they said, yeah, but we haven't quite decided we're going to do wine or beer or hard alcohol. And we don't, we still got to go through another process to get that approved. We don't know about the parking. We don't know about this. We don't know about that. We don't know the operating hours. You would never approve a CUP for a bar until you actually had the actual project in front of you. Let's talk about the conditional use permit findings you have to make. The staff has reviewed the 4 findings. This body could probably repeat them all themselves from all the times you've had to review them. I'd like to focus then on A and C. Those findings, I made this print extra big, but anyhow, the City Council cannot find that the planning is consistent with the objectives of the general plan, in my opinion. In our opinion. The Muni Code it's located in says that it's preserve open space, physical features, and scenic resources. That's at 301110B. That's what your general plan says you're supposed to do. How can you find that you are maintaining that and make a finding that this is consistent with the general plan if you're now going to not maintain the scenic resources? One of the objectives of your general plan, an admirable one, because this city is known throughout the country as the jewel city with the great, spectacular views. How can you be consistent with the general plan when you're taking away somebody's view? We also believe that you'd have trouble making the finding that the project is consistent, will not affect, the facility will not affect the neighboring properties. Clearly from the views, what they now see, the ridge line, they now see, have a view. Those poles, as the council pointed out as they looked at the photos, are going to change the view. The adjacent house is going to lose a view. Therefore, I think you have a trouble making the finding that it won't affect adjacent properties, which is item C. Again, we think that the process, this should be held up until you have an actual project before you. Let's go through, let them go through the design review board. Also, they need to get through the HOA. Brought with me a declaration by the director of the management company for the HOA. It's not very long or complicated. I will submit it for the record and a copy for each of the members. It basically says there is a CC&Rs. There is a requirement under Article 6 that the project be reviewed by an architectural committee, and that this project proposal has not been reviewed by the architectural committee of the homeowners association. So they could completely change this, and I don't think this council can make the proper findings until they know what project is going to come forward from the homeowners. And similarly, until this actually goes to your design review board, who knows what kind of project is going to be approved. And again, I don't see how you can make findings about a facility unless you know exactly what the facility looks like. We know that you strongly support your staff. We know you have a good staff, and that they obviously do good work, and that you'd be inclined, and are inclined perhaps, to look favorably on their recommendation, and we would understand why. We would nonetheless ask you to deny this project, option one. Option two would be to delay the CUP until the project is a real project approved by the Design Review Board and by the homeowners themselves, the Homeowners Association. If, despite our recommendations and requests, you are going to go forward, we would recommend that you approve it, subject to them limiting the height of the building as recommended by your planning commission and planning commissioner, hearing officer, who noted that the building was too tall, it was blocking, and recommended lowering it. While they have said they're going to do that, we don't actually have a specific enforceable project that says this will build at a certain height. So we'd like you to add limiting language that would limit the height of this building to the pad level of the house across the street, so that there would be no effect on their current views. If there are any questions, I'm more than willing to try to answer those.
Mr. Mnuchin, did you have a question?
Yeah, what is the CC&R thing you mentioned? What is that?
Conditions, covenants, and restrictions that forms the homeowners association. In that is Article 6, which says that no project can be built unless the architectural committee of the homeowners has approved that project.
So why is it in front of the city? Why is it coming in front of the city if it's
I've been on this project for a whole week, so I certainly don't know, but I think it's premature.
So that area has a homeowners association?
Yes.
And it has a CC&R?
They have CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and it hasn't gone through the process. We don't really know what the homeowners association is going to bring before you, and we don't see how you can make findings about something that's going to be changing. Also, Mr. Mnuchin, you asked a question about what was the lot line adjustment. The answer was clear, but a little bit left out a few things. When they built their pool and their deck, they were encroaching on the neighbor. They had an encroachment. And so they had to buy part of the neighbor's property to cure their encroachment on the existing pool and deck. And then to avoid doing a subdivision, because they bought a piece of somebody's lot, they proposed and got your approval for a lot line adjustment.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you, Mr. DiGiulio. You'll be able to come back.
Thank you. Thank you, each of
I
you.
will have the applicant has an equal amount of time. need your name for the record.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero and members of the City Council and staff. Before starting, I'd like to congratulate your appointment as a mayor, and we're happy to see this rotation every year, and all of you deserve to be in that seat every year. So, just to a point of clarification.
Your name for the record.
Oh, I'm
before you
sorry.
can begin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Sako Marcusi. I'm the
Thank you.
project architect, and I'm representing my clients. I'm located at 320 Arden Avenue, Suite 120, Glendale, California. A point of clarification was brought up. I just don't want this to be a issue which is in gray. When my clients bought the house in 1981, when they bought the house, the pool and everything, all the improvements were there. And when they hired me to do a remodeling and addition, through the process, I found out that after a survey was done, I found out that the pool and equipment that was approved, inspected, and permitted by the city was in neighbors' property. So I had to remedy that situation before coming back for design review and getting permits and all that. I know that's something that the city likes to see, these things corrected. So we went through a lot line adjustment and made sure that everything that belonged to my client was on his property. That's why we did the lot line adjustment in 2006. I like to say that I concur with both the planning hearing officer's decision and also planning commission's decision on this project. I know that I can never describe the project better than what you saw in the photographs in terms of view and the shape, the height, and geometry of the structure that we're proposing. First of all, it's not twice as tall as the existing one-story building. The one-story building is 16 feet tall to the top of the ridge. Our proposed project is 26 feet 8 inches. Granted that on a hillside, projects can go up to 35 in height with roofs having a slopes of 3 to 12 or larger. I like to talk a little bit about the CCNRs and bylaws. I've done maybe 10 or 12 homes in the past 25 years in this subdivision, and every one of the projects that I've presented has gone before their architectural committee and had approvals. I'm well aware of how their process works, and I've been in contact with the management company that handles the review of the projects, and I've assured them that they will be getting the plans, and I explained them where we were at this stage, and they agreed that we go through this process and then submit the plans to them for their review. Their review is primarily the aesthetics and make sure that the building is of high quality materials and complies with the HOA's CCNR bylaws in section 6.1 that talks about, again, the aesthetics, materials, and overall project appearance, landscaping, and whatnot. So I don't have much to say other than I would like to ask City Council to uphold the City Commission's and planning hearing officer's decision and approve our conditional use permit. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Mr. Marcusi? Okay, thank you very much. All right, before I bring Mr. DiGiulio for a rebuttal, I'll have the applicant, appellant, no? Okay. All right, then, Mr. DiGiulio, you're next.
Dr. Corey indicated he did not need to say anything. He's had ample opportunity, and also he has a medical emergency he's been dealing with all evening. One of his geriatric patients fell and hit his head, and he's been on the phone worried about that, but he has nothing to add. I would like to say that Mr. Corey and his family have been residents of Glendale and Atwater for 35 years. They've been here, they've been part of this community for all that time. They strongly support this city and would ask that the process that I outlined be followed. It's interesting that the architect believes that he has a sure thing. He can get it approved by the commission and by the Architectural Review Board of the Homeowners Association. But why not take the project there and have it approved so he could come here and say, here's the very project we're going to do. It's been approved by not only the Homeowners Association, but also we brought it through Design Review Board, and they like it. And this is now the facility that we want you to approve, and therefore you can make real findings based on real facts rather than findings which are really pretty ephemeral because you don't really know what the project is. You don't have an actual facility. Thank you for your time, your attention. I appreciate it. It's good to see a lot of good friends here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. What does the City Council have to say? Mr. Weaver.
Well, it was given at least 30 more days. Absolutely nothing came new except a new attorney. With the CC&Rs, I don't think, from what I understand, that has anything to do with the council procedure. I can look at that picture right there, and it's going to be twice as tall. Look at that look at that two-story house to the left there. Every house up and down is on the same slope as the road going down. If you want to object, you could say, well, that house is staring at us. Is really destroying the view. Let's see, would that be the LA Harbor? View is gone. No, that doesn't carry any weight with me when most of the homes up there are two-story. From here, yes, it goes to Design Review Board, and that is the process that councils of the past have set up. And we have also required the planning staff to review the project that goes to Design Review Board, write a recommendation to it on the architectural design, attend the meeting as necessary, and do all that. Following that approval, if everything is okay, I guess you can take it to the architectural committee, and I don't see anybody here tonight, not one single person here testifying that they object to this house. I can easily make all the findings. Said, well, they didn't reduce the height. Well, they reduced it 4 feet 7 inches from what I calculated. They took the tower down. I think they have a perfect right to build a house that's comparable in size, in height, and width as the others, all because, and we're only here because instead of 80, it's 79. Oh, that's just, we shouldn't even be sitting here tonight, in my opinion. The homeowner ought to be allowed to go build, I can look at that from the appellant's point of view and say, there's a whole lot of people in this city would like to have that view, regardless. We don't have a view ordinance. That's just the way it is. But that tree growing, that's been growing. That's blocking the view too. Maybe we ought to cut the tree down. But the appellant has a magnificent house and a great view. So I'm not about to deny somebody what is comparable with many, many other homes in the area, especially on that street. And I do remember that lot line adjustment back then. So I will support the house.
Well,
I don't know, issues with views are a touchy issue with me, and you'll remember I proposed that we deal with the view ordinance. Not that it would have affected this property, but it would have certainly given some sort of direction to staff that that is the direction we want to go, but that's not the direction that was given. I'm a little bit uncertain about this property, and as I look at the pictures, I can certainly see that the view that the individual has certainly had over the past many years will be blocked. That would, if I was the property owner, that would really upset me, because, as I've said it before, when people sell properties, they list their views, and they put a premium on those views, and that is important. It is important for me, and I think it should be important for this council as well. I just very hesitant about this project. I'm not certain how I'm going to vote on it yet. So,
Najarian.
Well, if there were a view ordinance, it
wouldn't affect us anyway.
The vistas that I would be concerned of were the ones that Vilya had circled, and I mean, she knew what the questions were. It's downtown LA, and from what I'm hearing and what's been represented is the downtown LA skyline would be preserved, and the beautiful up-and-coming downtown of Glendale would also be preserved by the southwestern view. Those are very critical views to me. If we were to ever develop a view ordinance, I'm sure those types of views and vistas would be the ones that we would try to protect. I see that there is some, that's probably Adams Hill, which is a very fine neighborhood, and I think probably the view of Adams Hill is going to be taken away by that, as well as perhaps Forest Lawn. Mr. Weaver's, were you going to be buried in Glendale Forest Lawn or Hollywood Forest Lawn?
Glendale Forest Lawn.
Well, so
I know where the boundary is.
So the view of Mr. Weaver's site, the Weaver Mausoleum, might be blocked by that. But I don't see. I mean, construction is terrible. I hate construction. It's very disruptive to family life. I know that the doctor has several young children, dust and all that. But I think in the end, a 27-foot height, which is what we're approving, that's the CUP condition that's stated, would be acceptable to me. I mean, grudgingly so, because I think the basic components of the view, the valuable components, are preserved. Now, that being said, I want to take my colleagues to task. We had an item before us. Where's Mr. Weaver? I want to take Mr. Weaver to task. He shouldn't be gone. We had an issue on Linda Vista. 3-4 weeks ago, and the issue there, the issue here is that it's a 79-foot width when measured, and our code requires an 80-foot width. This is why they need the CUP to build on it. We had another property which was on 4 acres, and the issue there was a 22% slope. 27 versus, it was a matter of a few percent. I'm not sure that it was that great a disparity. But in the end, my point was that we should take it as a whole and take a totality of the circumstance and not use a mechanical a mechanical determination on what should be given and what should not be given. In this case, a mechanical rule would say no, 80 feet is 80 feet, 79 is too short, we don't want to do it. I'm not applying that rule. I think we should, I'm trying to be consistent in my analysis in all these types of homes and all these types of issues, which I don't enjoy hearing, by the way. I don't think anyone on council likes to hear these. We have gone significantly long stretch without having many. They seem to be popping up at this point. But a city attorney, we should not concern ourselves with what the ultimate determination by the architectural committee may or may not do. I mean, that's a completely other issue, a completely other battle.
Councilman Najarian, that's correct.
Between
essentially, that's an issue of
private
covenants between the owner and the association.
Okay, so that's something between the association at this point. But what we're saying as a city, the issue before us is, despite a 79-foot lot, will we permit them to build with the condition that the highest point be 27 feet? Essentially, is there another couple conditions in there?
No, I think what's before you is a conditional use permit is required if the width of the lot is less than 80 feet. Otherwise, there would be no requirement of a conditional use permit. In this case, the conditions of a conditional use permit, according to the Planning Commission staff, have been met in order to approve the conditional use permit.
Which is a 27.
Well, it is that the house meets the four findings that are required to be made in order to approve the conditional use permit. What you were referring to with Linda Vista, that one required a variance from the standards for the slope of the driveway, which was different than, in that one you were looking at a conditional use permit and a variance. In this case, there is no variance in front of you.
Just a conditional use permit.
That's
okay,
correct.
I'm sorry, Mr. Weaver. Admonition, my earlier admonition. Anyway, I think we should let this get through the council, grant the CUP, and let the architectural committee of the homeowners association do what they want to do. I think that the Currys could probably live with this view blockage and still maintain beautiful vistas in the evening, especially when that all lights up.
Okay, Ms. Friedman.
Do we have a slide showing the view going to the right by any chance? I thought I saw something like that. There, okay. So can you show this slide on TV? Thank you. So to me, this argument based on view shows the difficulty of crafting a view ordinance and the reason why I didn't support a view ordinance but did support some language that gave the Design Review Board some latitude. This view to the right, which isn't going to be impacted at all, is a fabulous view. I would love to have this view. A lot of people would love to have this view. But this homeowner believes that it's not just this view they're entitled to, it's every view in every direction that they currently have. That's the only explanation I can see for this argument. And I don't think that there's certainly nothing in the code that gives them the right of stopping somebody else from developing their property so that they don't lose any bit of the view that they currently have. You can turn off the slide if you want, GTV6. And I don't think there's any moral argument or property argument to say that either. I mean, when did we get the idea that whatever you buy when you buy a house is going to be preserved in perpetuity forever, and no one else around you is going to get to change their property at all because you like this view and you like that and you like this thing? I never thought that I was guaranteed that when I bought my house, that nothing around me would ever change, nothing ever would get bigger. And I don't know why we're talking about this little view of LA or this view of this or this view of that. I think no matter what, he's got a spectacular view, even if that house blocked that whole bit. But I think this shows the danger of going down that view ordinance path. Are we going to be sitting here forever saying, no, it's this bit of view that's important, or it's that bit of view? It's Griffith Park. No, it's downtown LA. Well, it's Forest Lawn is what I want. Or I don't care. I'm not on a hill, but I like looking at the trees that are 2 lots over. I mean, it's an impossibility. So I don't see any way of saying no to this based on view. It's one thing if you have one of those properties where you've got one window and someone's putting a building and blocking your anything you see out your window, but that's certainly not the case here. And this house is substantially higher than this house across the street. Mr. DiGiulio, I don't know, you seem like a nice guy. I like your style, but there's a few things I'm going to take issue with. Scenic resources, really? You're talking about scenic resources? You actually think that the view of this guy's view out of his window constitute a scenic resource? I'm sure that Mr. Hagani, is a scenic resource somebody's personal view out their window?
No, not according to what's in there.
No, of course not. A scenic resource is a view that an entire community has of something like a ridge line or a mountain. We've heard the argument before about, does it go to design review first? Does it go to get a CUP first? I think it's only fair it gets a CUP first. No one's going to want to go through the expense of having plans done and an architect drop a full set of plans if you don't even know if you have the right to build. A few other things that was said, that this house will be twice as high as what was there. That's not true. So I don't know why you'd even say that. It's higher, but it's within keeping of all of the other houses on the street. And in fact, it's probably one of the smaller two-story houses on the street. So I just can't see telling this family that they can't have what every other house on that block has, is a two-story house, so that you keep a sliver of the view, the panoramic view that you have of the entire area. I just don't see that at all, and I don't see why. I'm sorry we delayed this hearing. We should have done it 2 weeks ago, but since no new evidence has come up. I'm sorry that you had to come back again. But I certainly will support upholding the planning officer and the planning commission's findings. And you still have to go through design review, so it's not over yet. But that's a different process. Thank you.
Okay, I also support the planning commission. I think this house, I actually drove to the site, and I think this house, the new construction will be compatible with the existing homes. There are just multiple two-story homes all over this neighborhood. That's what's before us, not the view or anything else. So I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make motion at 9A1 and with the comment, Mr. Najarian, I do not have a mausoleum. I have a niche about this way, right? Good enough for a casket that'll hold my wife and myself. And my view is an unobstructed view in the Glendale section of Forest Lawn that faces the Shoal Canyon complex above my house. Good enough?
And before the second, I want everyone to know I'm negotiating with the adjoining property owner
For the two-story.
where I will be building a mini mausoleum. So
You just would, wouldn't you?
We're going to have to limit the height on that.
I won't be able to object.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Manukian,
A symbolic no.
Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Next,
Well,
please.
that's why I say I'll never leave Glendale.
Next item on the agenda is oral communications. This is a full 5-minute portion. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay, Mr. Mohill, Mike Mohill, followed by Chinook Ramirez.
Stretching my legs. Just stretching my legs, Mr. Mullen. No, I'm not.
You want to go away tonight?
No, I'm just...
Best is up. Best is coming up. Good evening, Mayor Quintero, council members, and the viewing audience. My name is Mike Mohill. Last week again, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers came into the city council chamber and occupied about 95% of the seats. They were in council chamber to intimidate our council members. I understand the union negotiations were not doing very well. Otherwise, why would these dedicated, hardworking individuals be trying to intimidate city management? Not being privy to the city negotiations, I would like to ask these workers, do they think the GWP employees deserve excuse me, salaries and pensions greater than in the private sector? Do these workers realize there is about 17% unemployment in the city? Furthermore, expected city services are continuing to be slashed. IBEW workers, employees, if you retire today at age 67, the maximum Social Security payout is about $30,000 a year. Even if you earn billions of dollars like Mr. Bill Gates. By the way, the Congress of the United States is supposed to determine the amount of money for Social Security recipients. And if you've been reading the newspapers, they haven't been doing a very good job lately. Like you, Social Security is in trouble. As former President Bill Clinton would say, I feel your pain. But union workers, let me inform you why the city of Glendale will have plenty of hard times meeting your demands. Quite simply, we are broke. Broke because of the mismanagement of our council members. In 2001, Mayor Frank Quintero and Councilman Dave Weaver made it possible for safety personnel to retire with 90% of their last year's salary at age 50, rather than 55 years of age and 75% of the last year's salary. Today, we have hundreds of union employees over the past 10 years retiring with pensions and benefits over $100,000 and $200,000 a year for life. The new millionaires. IBEW, today there's a great deal of anger in our society, and government workers are taking the brunt of that anger. You see, the public trusted city council members and management to do the right thing, but instead they chose to become the pawns of government unions. If you are angry because you feel you deserve more, I don't blame you. The residents of Glendale are angry too. Angry because the city council just raised our water rates an additional 12% over the next 4 years. Angry because this is on top of the 59% rate increases we have been paying over the past 10 years. That money was supposed to be allocated to maintaining our crumbling water infrastructure. Instead, why did our council members transfer millions of dollars in past years from the GWP into the pockets of our union employees? Is that fair? I understand IBEW has a reputation of strong-arming its opposition to obtain increases in salaries and benefits in other cities. They have given millions of dollars to control city elections, and they have fought green energy initiatives like solar energy and wind turbines for years, because green energy solutions would not justify $100,000 plus salaries and gold-plated pensions and benefits. Recently, at 2 Glendale City Council meetings, they have done sit-ins as one of their tactics to get what they want. IBEW, the residents of Glendale have appreciated your past service, but if you feel you are not receiving a fair deal with the city, you need to look elsewhere. In these tough economic times, we need to be grateful to have a job, and the voters of Glendale need to look in the mirror and come to grips as to who is responsible for the mismanagement of our Jewel City. Thank you. My name is Mike Mohill.
Chinook Ramirez, followed by Charles Hooker.
Unsafe Glendale needs a great leader in enforcing the rule of law with illegal immigration, like the great Honorable Jan Brewer. Because clearly, the politically biased Frank Quintero, City Attorney Garcia, Glendale PD, i.e. Officer Shine, are not upholding the letter of the law. Next item, this is part 2, a continuation from March 20th, 2012. Thus, I was physically imprisoned for about half an hour on March 18th, 2012 at Chevron gas station by the Salvadorian criminal illegal aliens and employee who were nothing more than two-bit street brawlers and gangbangers. However, I managed to drag myself out of a Chevron mini market while still simultaneously being beaten and standing behind the cement bench right outside the automized glass double doors. They both tried hard to get me on the ground by pulling down and hitting me while yanking on my hair. I tried with every ounce of my energy to stay upright and not fall on the ground by toppling hard over the cement bench because it would be deadly. Then a paramedics van showed up called PRN number 29. They noticed what was happening and I pleaded with them while gasping for air to please call the cops. About 9:40, the racist, inept Glendale PD showed up and to my horror, the two Latino police officers were downright crass, brash, and patronized me. The rent-a-cop gangbanger officer Quintero had the colossal gall to ask me why I was angry, that I had no right to tell the illegals to go back to where they came from. What about my First Amendment rights, I asked, while American military veterans are dying daily for our liberties and freedoms at the chance of coming back to this beautiful country called America. These criminal illegal aliens and gangbangers are falsely imprisoning us, and the Glendale Police Department corrupted, no doubt, covering up. The other bald-headed Latino police insulted me as well. Both treated me like a criminal, yet I exercised self-control because I never hit back. Even under I could have filed self-defense, did not touch them. I directed myself mostly towards Officer Ayad. Clearly, I was beaten, shocked, and horrified, not to mention humiliated and mocked by these Latino racist gangbanging bullies in Glendale PD, who are nothing more than a Latino dirty rogue bullies who refused to file a citizen's arrest under the circumstances. These rent-a-cops and American wannabes are dirty rogue cops and ultra bullies playing the head games who clearly denied me equal protection under the law, denied me due process rights, civil rights, constitutional rights, and human rights violations. I now see where they got their examples, from the politically biased Mayor Frank Quintero and politically biased City Attorney Garcia. Action taken. I have contacted my attorneys, and clearly I do not hire Latinos, or you get what this, like the city attorney. I seek full restitution and justice under the law. Currently, I am waiting for the Chevron gas station to download and hand over the video surveillance of that grueling and traumatic experience to the corrupted Glendale Police Department for further investigation. Furthermore, Officer Ayad said to me that they could not arrest both criminal illegal aliens from El Salvador because there was no element of intent. Because they were detaining me for law enforcement purposes only, and yet no crime was being committed. God forbid it happened to a Caucasian or Armenian or Iranian or African American. Lastly, now I know why Glendale is a secret safe haven sanctuary and proliferating criminal illegal alien gangbangers, because they are hired as cheap labor. These employers should be sanctioned and incarcerated. They are the following: Chevron gas stations, Macy's, Target, Nordstrom's, all restaurants, all security companies, the corrupted and inept Glendale PD, the Americana, the Glendale Galleria, Walgreens, CBS, Metro buses, Beeline buses, JCPenney's, Food for Less, et al. Moreover, I've deduced Glendale is unsafe. It used to be a beautiful city. It no longer is. Again, clearly, Glendale City, with its coward Latino racist bullies who inculcate abuses, violations against me and military veterans by City Attorney Garcia and Mayor Frank Quintero, have had me interrogated today after my Section 5B and 5D public comments by Officer Shine, who insisted that I can't say this and I can't say that. She used the pretext word decorum, and she said this is not acceptable. Again, and I asked her, what about my First Amendment rights? Again, we are allowed to exercise our free-flowing ideas and the right to dissent in an open civic forum. And again, Glendale does not engage in fairness nor in the spirit of civility, but in the savagery, verbal savagery. So you see, Glendale is a mirror image of its politicians. Thank you.
Charles Hooker, followed by Herbert Milano.
Mayor, city councilman, I don't think I can beat that, but my name is Charles Hooker. I live in the 1900 block of Los Encinos in beautiful Glendale. There is an island in front of my house. It's nicknamed Eyesore Island. It's between Los Encinos and Alpha. There is nothing out there but one pine tree and a couple of oak trees, and then some scrub brush that needs to be yanked out. And I'll gladly pay this, if the city will let me, I'll pay for a couple of trees to go in there. And because it's really an eyesore. Glen Oaks and different parts of Glendale get mowed weekly or cleaned, and in Glendale Avenue, I can't understand why we can't at least a couple of times a year. Mr. Zern has helped out in the past, but I know unless somebody, pulls somebody's ear, and I haven't been able to do that yet, we need to get something going on that island, because it really looks bad. There's a great big condominium across the street, and I'm sure those people are tired of seeing that dumpy island and the trees not trimmed, and it would really help the area look a lot better. And then there's one other thing I'd like to say is Mr. Engel is a good about notifying people about keeping their property up and minor little things around the city, faded paint on their houses, and grass that has not been trimmed or anything. Mr. Engel needs to leave the city downtown area and observe the areas around in the woodlands and some of the other areas around the city. I realize this is a little out of the way from him. He doesn't have to leave the office down here at City Hall and go out and see what's really going on in Glendale. And Glendale is a beautiful place to live, and I've enjoyed living here for 70 years. And I'm just hoping that we can get some of our beautification back and not spend our money on that island out there on Glen Oaks and Glendale Avenue and get some of the residential area going. And even if we have somebody to come out there from the city to clean the property, unless they're properly notified a couple days in advance, the city workers can't get in there to pull out those big, tall, 10-foot bushes that have grown up on that island. So we need somebody to notify people 2 days in advance and then have somebody come out there. And like I say, I will help. I'll buy the trees if the city of Glendale will either let me hire somebody to plant them or if they'll plant them for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Herbert Milano, followed by Robert Fitzgerald.
Good evening, Mayor Quintero, members of the City Council and staff. My name is Herbert Milano. About 10 years ago, when I started to become interested in the workings of the city, not that I came in to try to look for problems or try to investigate anything.
You had a beard back then.
Pardon me?
You had a beard back then.
I had a beard, yes, and my hair was a lot darker. So was yours, by the way.
Yes.
It's been a fairly slow process that I've taken to slowly, year after year, after coming to the budget sessions, to try to get a sense or an understanding of the trends within the city's budget. And throughout the years, especially during the last four, as the economy has gone through a severe downturn, that I began even to see more carefully to see if there were indicative trends, early signs of the impending impact. I know that back in 2006, I started bringing up some of the topics concerning what I considered at the time was a logarithmic increase in the payroll. At that point in time, there were very few people really coming to the budget study sessions. And for some of them, I remember I was the only person trying to bring at least a semblance of awareness, or at least try to understand what was happening with those trends. At the time, we had a fairly good document available, which is the budget summary. The budget summary allowed us to take a look at different departments and gave us a fairly good overview of what the city was current snapshots were for each one of them. But what the budget summary did not have was a trend line. Were these particular increases in payroll or capital improvement increasing, decreasing, what was happening to those? And I think that we have a framework of a document that could serve us very well as the city starts to prepare its budget study sessions. To my surprise, many residents that have been here for a very long time, and some of them who actually have even served on the city council, are sometimes unaware of those particular trends, which is quite a surprise to me. That individuals who have been in office, political office for a long time, were sometimes carrying certain types of beliefs. One of those beliefs that are incorrect has to do with the property tax trends. The property tax trends in Glendale, because it's a fully built city, have been fairly stable. In fact, they have been increasing continually and only flattened out during the last couple of years. So it is a significant surprise for many people to find out that since Prop 13 came into being in 1978, that property revenues in Glendale have increased by 1,100%. And I'm talking about individuals who are in political office, who are well known to many of you, and who are totally unaware, and they basically simply take certain comments that they pick up from the general knowledge that goes around that is not accurate. Well, if property revenues have been increasing for such a long period of time, then why has our budget situation become so dire? Glendale is lucky in that its property tax revenues as a percentage of the overall budget is a fairly small percentage. Many cities, property taxes is like 50%. Here we're dealing, 15 to 20 depending on the year. And so it is my opinion that a proper report that tries to elucidate to the general public the trends that the city has undergone by department, by salaries, by capital improvement and all, would be a good beginning to frame the detailed message that could come after that. Many people were surprised at the significant, should we say, decline in the capital improvement funding. There used to be a time back 10 years ago when 50% of the sales tax revenue went to capital improvement. That was when Mr. Weaver was mayor, and we had Ginger Bremberg and Mr. Manukian, you were there as well. And that was the trend back then, that we would set aside a certain amount of money from the sales tax revenues as well, dedicated for that. And then about 5-6 years ago, it came down to only 14%, and now it's down to 0. These trends are fairly important for the public to know, and it is my hope that the budget summaries be reinitiated as a precursor to the budget study sessions. Thank you very much.
Robert Fitzgerald.
Good evening. My name is Robert Fitzgerald. I would like to see a show of hands. On February 9th, I sent all of you an email regarding, in response to Mayor Friedman's invitation to submit evidence supporting the science of smart meters. I sent each of you 3 attachments. None of them were returned, so I assume you received them. I'm just wondering if anybody read them. One? All right. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the fees that are being imposed on the opt-outers. As you know, Mr. Steiger was here and made a presentation saying basically that he thought it would be socialism if the 99.5% of the population had to carry the burden of the lesser percent having a manual meter reading. And so those fees were approved. They go into effect in about 2 weeks. But he neglected to mention, as he had spoken on many public occasions, that for a period of 2 years, the GWP is going to have a dual meter reading system. They're going to maintain manually reading meters for 2 years. so they can compare and see how accurate they are. So it doesn't seem fair to me that I should be paying fees for something that everybody else is getting anyway. So I would request that you reconsider and waive these fees for that 2-year period, and we'll come back to it at the end of that time. Thank you.
That's the final card. Are there any comments from?
Is it true we're going to be maintaining the dual system? Okay. Because I didn't think so. That's the impression I was under, that we were not. But if we are, I'd like to actually get information on it. The budget summaries went by, when they started cutting the budget back in 2007, they cut that first. And I had started back then measurements in terms of performance measures, and they were going to be put in the budget summaries, and it stopped after I got off. I lost the election in 2007, and at that point, the performance measures and that report stopped being produced. So that's that. I just got done with tax season, and I'm going to be having more time to delve into budget issues, and I'm looking forward to the budget process. So.
I want to say that maybe someone could look into Mr. Hooker's eyesore, and I know that having someone plant trees isn't always what you want, but maybe you can, since he's willing to pay for it, maybe you can look into whether it's feasible and whether it would cost us too much money in maintenance, that kind of thing.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Friedman, we clean that island every year since Mr. Hooker first brought it to our attention. And it's not really a matter of planting more trees. And I have to tell you, not all of his neighbors share his concern. In fact, I've been chastised severely for trimming the trees and clearing the brush because the vegetation acts as a privacy screen for many of the residents. So it's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, but we're trying to maintain that balance. But every year I have my staff go out and look at it. We clean it up, make sure we don't have weeds and overgrown brush and that kind of thing.
All right, I'm glad to know you're aware of it. It's not been forgotten. Okay, thank you.
Well, I just want to say she's not in the chambers, but it's unfortunate that we have to listen to the racist rantings of that poor lady. She obviously is in distress, but it seems to be an ongoing thing that will be subjected to this every 5 minutes of oral communications. What can we do? It's her right to do so, but really unfortunate.
But isn't there something we can do as it relates to comments, racist comments, as Mr. Quintero mentioned, because that has no place in public discourse. Aren't they supposed to come up and raise issues about Glendale itself?
Sounds like we're talking about L.A.
Right. And if I may, I mean, she did tie with respect to she did relate issues related to Glendale police and how she felt she was treated correctly or not, but so that was certainly within the purview of the council, and so it was a proper subject matter. As it relates to the racist comments, it's one of those things, unless it's to the point where it's going to cause violence, essentially. It's something we can't raise. And we've had this situation in the past where other speakers have raised it, and again, it's the same thing. We really don't have a lot of remedy or recourse in that regard.
Having been subjected to that many times on this dais, actually. Last time I was elected mayor, there was an individual who came and in front of my family actually made racist comments towards me and my ethnicity. I just think that it's disgraceful what happens, and it has, like I said, it has no room in public discourse. People can disagree on issues. People can be emotional and passionate about their issues, disagree and argue about issues, but being discriminatory and making racist comments certainly does not have any room in those discussions.
I agree. There are a lot of outstanding Latinos out there, attorneys that can help her out if she wanted.
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious to a lot of people that poor lady is not doing too well at this.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Hey, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.